Hey now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday, a championship Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and world champion Dan Lucero here with you until 6 o'clock today. Yeah, we got a bunch to get to. We'll talk some Royals. We'll talk some Chiefs. We got a lot of KU to get to. KU football recruiting with another big day today. But let's just dive right in. Dan's Denver Nuggets are world champions.
I say y'all having a good time out there.
For the first time in franchise history, Dan's Nuggets are world champions. What was it like? What was the moment like when the final horn sounded? Did you believe it until, like, at any point until KCP dribbled out the clock?
Brother, I still don't believe it. It's a little like asking me to believe that the sun is going to rise in the West. The idea that the Denver Nuggets are the NBA champions. Would you agree that the formative years of your fandom, kind of like ages 9 to 16, 17, are kind of formative fandom years? You do a lot of like growing close to your favorite team, maybe going to see them with your dad or your buddies or whatever it is. So in the formative years of my childhood and the years that are supposed to grow my affection to the sports teams I'm going to follow for the rest of my life, the Denver Nuggets didn't make the playoffs once. They had a year where they won 11 out of 82 games, one of the worst seasons in NBA history. They had a year where they went 14-36, the lottery season, and panic fired the guy who was their head coach, a guy named Mike D'Antoni, who ended up being a pretty good coach a little later on.
He's been all right.
Yeah, replaced him with franchise legend Dan Issel, who had to resign in disgrace 26 games into the next season for using a slur at a fan as he walked off the court after a loss. Like, Nuggets vibes were horrendous for a very, very long time. Even when they were good, they were not like great.
Yeah.
You know, first round loss after first round loss after first round loss in the Carmelo Anthony years. And these are like the formative years. These are the years where you're kind of deciding like what it's going to be. Like, what is your relationship with your favorite team going to be? That was what I grew up with. That was life, what we call it. And, so that franchise being champions, all the times I went to Ball Arena, it used to be the Pepsi Center, McNichols Sports Arena as a kid, and you'd look up and you'd see the championship banners for the Colorado Avalanche and championship banners for the Colorado Mammoth of the National Lacrosse League, and all you had for the Nuggets was ABA regular season champions, 1976. Regular season champions. Like, that's not a thing.
Wow, major Indianapolis Colts banner vibe.
That's all we had. Division champions and a regular season champion.
I didn't know that was up. Wow.
Yeah. They
Texas Tech's 2020 NCAA tournament banner for the tournament that never played.
They had division championships banners, and they had the regular season champions, a year in which, by the way, they had a 14-point lead going into the fourth quarter of Game 7 of the last ABA Finals, and they didn't close the deal. So everybody says 47 years. It's really 56 years of Nuggets history, a franchise that exists basically by accident. The ABA wanted to put a team in Kansas City. The ownership group fell apart. A guy named Bill Ringsby took it over and moved it to Denver and called them the Rockets. And they were the Rockets until they realized, hey, maybe we want to get in on the NBA, and they've already got a Rockets. If we're going to make it into this other league ever, we should probably change our name. And they did. And they changed their name and got good, like right at the same time. The last 2 years of the ABA were their best years. Otherwise, who knows if they're part of the merger? Like, they kind of snuck in under the wire. Indiana, San Antonio, the Nets with Dr. J, like those are always going to be attractive teams. And the Nuggets probably don't make the merger if they don't win over 60 games in the last 2 years of the ABA. So for the star-crossed history of the franchise to finally culminate in winning an NBA championship last night. Yeah, you asked me how I reacted when it sunk in. It hasn't, and it's going to take a really long time. But thankfully, the moment recorded on video, my wife has the video of me in the final seconds, and my voice going up about 20 octaves when I realized about the same time Mike Breen did on the broadcast that the Heat weren't going to foul with a 5-point game and that it was really going to end. My big behind got so far up in the air. I can't even believe I didn't know I could jump that high. It might be higher than Nikola Jokic has jumped in his entire life. I did not know I could jump as high as I did when I realized that the game was going to end. It has been the time since that has been a blur. I didn't get to bed till like 2:30 last night.
I believe it.
I'm just it's a dream come true. It really is. It's the sports thing that I've known the longest and wanted the longest, and now they're the champions, and they did it with an extremely fun and likable team.
Yeah.
And they kicked a righteous amount of backside in the process. It was 16-4 in the playoffs. Never trailed in a series. Didn't lose a game by more than 8 points. First team not to lose a game by double digits in a title run since the 99 Spurs, I think it is.
Wow.
Like they wrecked shop. They were the best team from start to finish. And
easily.
if people couldn't see that, then I understand, because it is hard to look at the Denver Nuggets and see that. But that is what they were, and that is what they are. And they are champions and legends in my hometown forever.
We will talk about this plenty coming up here in a minute. We do have plenty to get to on the show today in general. We've got a comment from Will in the YouTube comment section. Appreciate Will hopping on with us today, who says NBA champion Christian Brown, too. Got
damn straight.
The local tie-in. He had another good game. It wasn't, otherworldly, but he was good. Came up with a few big plays. He was, as much a part of it as any of these other roles. You don't see a lot of rookies contribute unless you are, great.
And it was something, it was a blind spot of the Nuggets for a while, that it felt like they were slow, and head coach Michael Malone would be slow to trust young players and prefer veterans to young players. And a lot of coaches, a lot of franchises get stuck in that. But it was pretty clear early this year that, in the second game of the season, he might not play every game, but Michael Malone very clearly trusts this kid. Yep. The general manager of the Nuggets, Calvin Booth, pounded the table for Christian Brown in the draft process. They say they would have taken him if they'd had a lottery pick. They would have taken him in the lottery. And the reason they would have taken him is the same reason he played 40 minutes in the national championship game last year with KU. The reason that he won 3 state championships at Blue Valley Northwest, because he impacts winning, and he knows how to win, and he knows what it takes to win. And the Nuggets needed guys like that. And it's pretty cool how impactful CB was as a rookie. And made a lot of, he's a cult hero, no question about it. He's made a lot of fans in the Mile High City.
I think there's a number of teams who did pick in the lottery who would have rather had someone with the impact of Christian Brown than Dyson Daniels. Pelicans probably think, oh man, we would have liked a guy like that. But we'll talk about this coming up here in just a second. We will get to more of it. We've got some Royals to get to later on this hour. They lost last night. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. It was a uniquely painful loss, though. Replay review to throw the game out for the Royals last night. That was unfortunate. Wanted to have a little fun and try to keep things a little bit light with the team that is now 1.5 games up on the worst record in all of baseball. Some unique creative ideas to try to get a spark going for this team. We'll touch on that a little bit later on this hour. We will also get to Chris Jones not attending mandatory minicamp for the Chiefs. Why it might not be all that big of a deal, especially when you contrast it and compare it to what's going on in Buffalo with one of their best players, Stephon Diggs, right now. We'll explain what that means coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. As I said earlier, huge week for KU recruiting on the football trail. That continues. Michael Swain of Fog.net is going to join us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour to talk all about that on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We'll preview tonight's Royals-Reds game. We've got our headlines, Random Question Tuesday. We will get to all of that coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. Text line's open. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, the YouTube comment section as well. YouTube channel's called Sports on 580, WIBW. And you can come watch the video version of the show and hop into the live stream and hang out with us throughout the course of the show today. We also have a little 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up at 6 o'clock tonight. This game last night, I think, was just the perfect encapsulation of what the Nuggets have done to build this team. And we wanted to bring this back to a bit of a local tie
because sports, like politics, like the saying, all politics is local, all sports is local.
Yeah, it really is. And you look at, and I think you could realistically, had the series gone the other way, you probably could have made a somewhat similar comparison, not entirely 1-for-1, but a somewhat similar comparison with Miami, because that's a team with, as much as it's made fun of, the Heat culture, it is a good culture. That team had no business getting to the NBA Finals. That is a well-coached team, well-run team. They have a superstar player. You could have probably made a similar comparison. But when you look at this Denver team and the fact that in an era, and it's different in the NBA than football, I get it. But in an era in the NBA in which it is about, or has largely been about super teams and stars ganging up together to try to win championships, despite the fact that that has really only worked a couple of times. Like the Heat got it to work. Boston made it work once. And I guess the bubble Lakers, if you want to count them.
Golden State adding Durant.
Yeah, Golden State did add Durant, but they had already won a championship before him.
It's a little different, yeah.
This is a completely homegrown. The core of this team is completely homegrown. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA. He's the best basketball player in the world right now. They drafted him 41st overall.
During a commercial for the Taco Bell quesarito.
Jamal Murray, who is, I don't know, in NBA terms, like just this side of superstar status. He's a homegrown guy who they stuck with through injury. Their head coach coached in Sacramento before during Sacramento's dark years, but spent 8 years to get his championship. How many teams in any pro sport right now are going to wait that long with a coach who's a good coach, but hasn't won or even played for a championship? How many are sticking with that coach?
It never happens.
No, never. And that's across sports, really. The guy I think of that comes to mind immediately, the Minnesota Vikings, we've talked about a weird amount the last 2 days. Mike Zimmer was a good NFL coach, great defensive coach, and a good head coach. Spent 7 years in Minnesota, got close to a Super Bowl one time, and they got destroyed in the NFC Championship game.
Marvin Lewis is a good example.
Marvin Lewis, great example. Good head coach, well-liked, smart defensive coach as well.
And he was in Cincinnati for 14 years?
Yeah, never. And that was kind of the last example of being able to get by as just being a good coach. Tomlin's got a title. Harbaugh's got a title. Those guys have champion. Mike McCarthy's in a second place, but he has a championship.
Right.
That doesn't happen very often. You know who's a great example of that? And there are different aspects of it. Andy Reid is an example of that. He has been a great coach for a long time. He didn't win until he was deep into his Chiefs tenure. Their biggest superstar, the best player in the world, homegrown guy. Now, they had to move up to get him. They didn't get to linger around in the second round during a commercial break to get Patrick Mahomes, but homegrown guy. Your next biggest superstar, who has gone through some adversity. Now, granted, Kelsey's was in college and was somewhat self-inflicted, but your second biggest superstar, homegrown guy, you stuck by. Kelsey also a bit of a wild boy. I think most people would tell you that, especially in his earlier years.
He had some growing up to do.
No doubt about that. Stuck with him. He is now he's best tight end in football history. Or he's on pace to maybe be that. Jamal Murray isn't that good, but he was the best player on the floor a number of times in this championship run.
And the perfect complement to the best player on the team. Like that's the most direct straight line comparison. Why I think of the Chiefs when I think of what the Denver Nuggets have accomplished. And obviously it took the Nuggets longer to accomplish what they accomplished than it took the Mahomes and Reid era Chiefs to get to the championship level. Part of that is the Chiefs didn't lose their version of Jamal Murray for 2 postseasons in a row. Like that would have been pretty devastating if they had. But you know how we joke about those XY graphs of quarterbacks? You know, the X-axis is one thing, the Y-axis is another. And you always want to be in like the top right. Like the bottom right means you're good at one thing, you're good at whatever's on the X-axis, you're bad at whatever's on the Y-axis. Bottom left corner is hell. That's
you stink.
You stink. You're garbage. You don't want to be there. And you see all, the further up and further right you get on the graph, you will see like the great quarterbacks. You'll see Rodgers, you'll see Burrow, you'll see Allen. Depending on the stat, you might see Lamar Jackson. And then you got to zoom out and go way, way up and way, way over to the right. And there's Patrick Mahomes. He breaks the scale. Right?
I believe there's a Twitter account that's just called like Mahomes graphs or something like that, where it's just, here is success rate. Here is passing on first down. It's just all graphs that have Mahomes in the top right corner.
Yeah, he breaks the scale. He is almost literally off the chart. That's Nikola Jokic. That's him in a basketball sense. He is basketball Mahomes, or since he's been doing it a little longer. Maybe Mahomes is football Jokic, who knows? But you have the outlier. You have the player who breaks the game, the player who never has a bad game, the player who you can always lean on, the player who solves every problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hole big enough that you can't plug because you have this guy. Mahomes is that guy in the NFL, and he's that guy for the Chiefs. Jokic is that guy in the NBA, and he's that guy for the Nuggets. And he has his perfect running mate, the guy born to play next to him. I think Travis Kelce is that for Patrick Mahomes in the same way that I think Jamal Murray is that for Nikola Jokic. But you go back to that first point about continuity and about culture and how important those things are when you're building championship teams. And so much of that is trust. It's trust of the front office. Like, front office culture is a real thing. The Chiefs,
for sure.
The Chiefs have, turned over some places in their front office. They've turned over offensive coordinator quite a bit.
Yeah.
The Nuggets lost their general manager before this season began. Tim Connolly got $8 million a year from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Nuggets were never going to pay that for a front office guy.
Didn't he get an ownership stake too?
Yes, got a partial ownership stake. Yeah, it was wild. And then immediately went and traded for Rudy Gobert, which was very funny. No matter, Nuggets just plugged in the next guy in their front office, Calvin Booth. And all he did was put the finishing touches on this championship roster. So it's having trust in your front office culture and your coaching culture, and it bleeds down into your locker room culture. Not a lot of knuckleheads, not a lot of guys who let their ego be in front. I don't like to talk about professional athletes as egoless, because none of them are. None of them. Not even Barry Sanders or whatever example you want to throw at me. There are no egoless professional athletes.
It was Walter Payton when I was a kid.
Yeah. People say, well, Nikola Jokic doesn't have an ego. Sure he does. Mm-hmm. He wants to be great, just like anybody else who competes at a high level like that. But it's subversion of ego. It's setting ego aside to play the role you're supposed to play. Do you think Jayhawk McKinnon probably believes he's as good a running back as there is in the NFL? That maybe if he was on another team, he might be the feature back, get first and second down carries in addition to third down carries? I bet he does. I bet there's a part of Jayhawk McKinnon that thinks that that's what he could be or should be or might be if not for the injuries in his career.
I was going to say, or at the very least, under different circumstances in my career, I could have been that guy. For sure. You have to.
He's in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and he is the best possible version of himself. And it's not a star role, but it's a super important role. He's like the Aaron Gordon. It's not a star role for Jayhawk McKinnon, but it's the role that allows him to do the things that he's good at and be the best possible version of himself, similar to Aaron Gordon's impact with the Denver Nuggets. I see a lot of similarities, and it's probably because they're the two professional sports teams I probably watch the most of. So you can't help but see the differences. But really where it all comes back to is having the outlier, having the guy that is the answer to every possible question. When you start there, and when you are patient and build around that and put the right pieces together around that, then you can be a champion. And that's the constant in great organizations. Probably goes beyond sports, to be totally honest with you. Culture, continuity, those things matter so much and contribute so much to success. And as a fan, it makes it even more rewarding because you've seen the growth. Like, the Nuggets could have traded Jamal Murray for Kyrie Irving in 2017. That's well publicized. That was a possibility. They looked into it. And Kyrie Irving in 2017 was a better player than Jamal Murray in 2017. Could they have been better in that season? Maybe made the playoffs in 2018 if they'd had Kyrie Irving. They missed the playoffs by one game that year. Might Irving have made the difference? Maybe. Maybe they get in the playoffs. Maybe they're a 7 seed. Maybe they press the 2 seed that year, get bounced in the first round in like 6 valiant games or whatever. But then it doesn't become this. It doesn't become that moment where Jamal Murray is brought to tears at Ball Arena because the crowd just keeps getting louder and louder during his post-game interview. That was the point last night where I got the most emotional by far.
Yeah, understandably. I felt emotional watching it.
It's so rewarding when it's built like this. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm built, not bought. That's the way to go. Like, I don't want to sound arrogant or smart or smug about it. That's not.
I mean, if there was ever a day to, though.
That's true.
Tomorrow, maybe not. Today, absolutely.
But I just do. I think it's much more rewarding when you can remember back to how the journey began, and you don't skip any of the steps along the way, and you get to the very top. There's nothing that beats that.
We should note, and we talked about him a little bit already, you talk about culture and finding the right guys and chemistry and the right fits and all of that. And I think something that comes up, and it's one of the things that honestly bothers me when breaking down, champions or games or just athletes or whatever, is talking about, well, this guy's just a winner. I feel like that is often used as kind of a crutch for, well, they keep winning, but I can't explain how because I don't really get ball.
Right.
Like, that was what was said about Tim Tebow all the time, right? Is that, well, he's just a winner. Well, in college, he was the best player on the field. But in college, you can also, running that offense Urban Meyer was running, you can get by when you don't really know how to throw a football. Like, Ohio State won a lot of games with dudes who were going to go pro in something other than sports. Like, you can get by with that in college. And Tebow was obviously an incredible athlete, too. When he got to the pros, there will never be an explanation for why Denver won 8 games in a row when Tebow was their starting quarterback.
The damnedest thing.
Like, that was not just because, well, he's a winner. Look at some of those scores. That was not just being a winner, right? And then when it got to the latter part of his career, when it was clear that he was not going to be a quarterback in the NFL, it took him way too long. And like, hey, what if we made you a special teamer? What if we moved you to H-back or just running back or something? He was, no, I refuse to do it. That's not being a winner, okay? And look, great career, great college career, whatever. It was way too late when he decided maybe I'll try tight end. He couldn't even make Urban Meyer's team at that point. Anyway, you look at a guy like Christian Brown, who quite literally cannot stop winning. Like, he does have that, because that is a guy who came into, at KU, he had different roles his 3 different years with the program. His first year, he was a sharpshooter. He came in, he was a bench sharpshooter, started a little bit too. In what would that have been, 1920?
And that's what they needed, because they got blown out in the second round of the tournament by Auburn before he got there, because they couldn't keep up with Auburn's 3-point shooting. And
he was keep your head down, work hard, 3-and-D, and that's what he did. We did not know quite what the personality of Christian Brown was his freshman season. 21, it was a little bit different. They asked him to do more. He didn't shoot the ball as well, but he had developed a better defensive game at that point. He was more of a slasher. 2022, he was one of the most important pieces for a national championship winning team. All the core pieces of that 6-man rotation played a huge role for that team, but his role continued to change. They kept winning. He kept finding ways to help his team win, even if he wasn't scoring, even if he wasn't shooting.
When you're around it, you learn the habits that make a winner. When we say somebody's a winner, what we really mean is they have winning habits. And that starts with the stuff we don't see. That starts with the stuff, the work ethic and the workouts and the film study and things like that. But you develop winning habits when you're around winning. And he's certainly at Blue Valley Northwest, like, he had some great teammates. Like, he had some guys play with him that went Division I when he played at Blue Valley Northwest, but he was the dude. And it's hard. And most every great high school athlete, when they go to college, except for the top 1%, has to make the adjustment when you go to the next level is you're a dude among dudes. And you might not be number 1 scoring option. You might not be 35 minutes a night right away. Like, that might not be you. So, okay, how else can I contribute to winning? You can look around if you're a part of a winning program, and you can see the sacrifices that everybody else is making, and you learn from those, and you make those sacrifices yourself as you're called to make them. And look, not to make this the Christian Brown hour, but like, the Nuggets targeted him in this draft with a purpose, because they knew he was a winning player, that they saw him not come off the floor in the national championship game, and knew that Bill Self, who by the way was there last night at Ball Arena,
he tweeted,
yes,
it could be a fun night. When Bill Self tweets and it's not about his summer camps, it's a big deal. He does not do it very often.
No, he got a picture after the game.
Yeah,
with
Curtis
CD.
Townsend was there too.
Yeah, really, really funny. You think they went together? Do you think they drove?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they definitely went together. I don't know if they drove, but they definitely went together.
You don't think they road tripped it on I-70?
Those two are inseparable at this point.
But no.
And you go back to Blue Valley Northwest, too, just talking about, like, learning winning habits. Go ask anyone who's been through the Blue Valley Northwest program what they think of Ed Fritz and the winning habits that he instilled in that program.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's not coaching there anymore, but, like, go ask them about learning winning habits at that program. He's always had that. And you bring him into that program, and that's, that franchise, I should say, talking about an NBA team, like, that's what you do. Like, when you get to that level, you want guys who are going to be, their role is malleable. They are willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, how many games did he play this season? Do you know?
Christian Brown? Not off the top of my head. He didn't play in every game.
Right.
I remember he was in the rotation when Michael Porter Jr. got hurt November, December. And when MPJ came back after Christmas, it was MPJ right back in the lineup, and Christian Brown didn't play. I was at the game. I tweeted about not being happy that Christian Brown didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
You know who else wasn't happy Christian Brown didn't play? His mom. Because she found that tweet and retweeted it to her followers. So, like,
unlike Bill Self, Mrs. Brown is very busy on Twitter.
Yeah, she is super online. But no, there were times where he didn't factor in the rotation. There were games where he didn't play. There were series, like, he was a bad fit in the Los Angeles Lakers series, so he didn't play hardly much in that series. He was a much better fit in the Miami series, so he played a lot, and he impacted winning. He was maybe the most important player in Game 3 of the series. So just goes to show, part of winning, part of subversion of ego, part of being a champion is being ready when your number's called and being ready for whatever is asked of you. And the Nuggets had a ton of those guys. Contavious Caldwell-Pope is a consummate example of a guy like that. Jeff Green has been a guy like that in his career. Bruce Brown was a guy who, on a different team, was asked to play essentially like a small ball center. He's 6'4". He played guard in college. He was playing center for the Nets last year.
It's awesome.
And this year, the Nuggets put him in a role that better suited him, handling the ball, doing a little more scoring. He gives them the best shooting year and one of the best scoring years of his career. Like, even the guys who don't play, you know how hard it is not to play on a team? Like that role.
Yes, I do, in fact.
Being the guy who you might get 1 minute or you might see garbage time, but that's it. You got to have guys on the team that are okay with that. The Nuggets had a guy on the team that wasn't okay with that, Bones Highland, and they got rid of him for nothing to a conference rival at the trade deadline.
Culture matters.
Yeah, because you have guys like Ish Smith, 13 years, 13 teams in the league. Great teammate. DeAndre Jordan, curator of vibes. Great teammate. Played last night. Almost had a heart attack when he had to play in the first quarter. That was a sign that maybe things aren't going to go well tonight. I don't know. But it's about culture and having good teammates. And we can say all of these things over and over again, and they apply. You can look at every team who's ever won anything ever at any level of sport, and you can say it about them. And now you can say it about the Denver Nuggets, and I think that's pretty damn cool.
By the way, one more thought on CB. In his last 7 years of playing basketball, he's won 5 championships. He hasn't been the focal point of every single one of those, but he played a role in every single one. That's unbelievable.
A couple of texts from the text line from the 785. We can talk all day about Jokic, Murray, and culture, but we all know the real reason for this title: the Kansas kid, Christian Brown.
That's
right. Proven winner, Rock Chalk Championship.
Love it.
We have another text that confirms it was 76 games for Brown. 19 in the playoffs. I think the only DNP he caught was Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals.
Okay. That's actually more than I thought he played. I thought there were a few. Well, I'm sure he got in garbage time.
Yeah, there were some. I think I was at one of his only DNPs of the season.
Really?
Yeah, was which is kind of funny. Another one for the 402. How happy are you? I presume me that your dad was able to see a championship.
That's cool.
Quick aside on that. My dad was on an airplane last night. He and my mom were in California for the weekend, and he was flying back during the game, and he got back to the house. They live about 30 minutes from the Denver airport, which I don't know if you've heard, but the Denver airport is far away from the city of Denver.
Quite a bit.
I don't know if you've heard that. Some people believe it is in Western Kansas. In fact, you may not have heard that before. But my dad was able to avoid seeing the game, having the game spoiled. He got home and turned the game on the DVR as in real time, Bruce Brown was going to the free throw line with 14 seconds left. So my dad manages to avoid these spoilers all night and settle in to watch Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And that's when the fireworks started going off in the neighborhood. And not as many fireworks. If you're from Kansas, you know, like it was probably sounded like the 4th of July when the Chiefs won their Super Bowls. It's not quite that where my folks live. Fireworks are technically illegal there, but there was enough that my dad had to do a little bit of lying to himself and think, well, maybe there are a bunch of cars backfiring tonight, and watch the whole game. I didn't get to talk to him. I called him at 12:45 local time here, so 11:45 back in Denver. But I got to call and talk to him, and you know, like he had David Skywalker Thompson poster on his wall when he was a kid, just like I had posters of LaFonso Ellis and Dikembe Mutombo and Carmelo Anthony. So it was very, very cool to share that with him. No question.
We do have to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk, our first of the day. We'll come back. We'll play a little random question Tuesday, and we'll talk some Royals baseball a little bit later this hour as well. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Random Question Tuesday time here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you, celebrating an NBA championship from yesterday. One of us is anyway. I'm happy for you, though.
Thank you.
It's like ancillary celebration here on the other side of the glass. You mentioned it earlier, like the formative years of being a fan, like when you really have memories or you go to games or you develop maybe some of your favorite athletes. In that kind of time period, who were the players or who was the player that, like, on the basketball court with your friends or playing catch with your dad or like throwing the football around, whatever, who were the athletes that you pretended to be or imitated?
That is a cool question. So like lots of different ones, right? Like there's because I played as many sports as I could, mostly baseball and basketball. Never did play any tackle football. I played 1 year of flag football. The coach was all about his kid and only his kid.
Yeah.
Soured me on the youth football experience. I never went back. That and my mom wasn't too keen on seeing me get tackled either. So the deal was do a year of flag football, see if you like it. And I did and I didn't. So that was the end of my football career. But, when I played basketball, I I guess I fashioned myself after former Nugget Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf because I just would shoot from everywhere. I just felt like I could have unlimited range, and that would be what I would do. Baseball, this will be two kind of strange ones. I used to imitate Dante Bichette's pre at bat routine, kind of stretch the bat up over his head.
Oh yeah.
And behind his back. Yeah, I used to do that. My brother did that a lot too. We were both big Bichette fans. And Tom Glavine, I kind of tried to imitate his windup a little bit. I was a big Tom Glavine fan, left-handed pitcher.
Yeah.
I didn't throw super hard, but just.
Well, you liked the Braves as a kid.
I did. Like the Braves before the Rockies came. That was the Braves who I kind of was attracted to on watching TBS, on TBS, on the Superstation. So Tom Glavine was probably my first favorite baseball player, and did try to imitate him a little bit.
Basketball, I was definitely like the weirdest kid on earth because my favorite player as a kid was Kirk Heinrich for the Bulls, but I was tall. I'm still tall, but not like NBA tall. I used to do post moves and say I was Tyson Chandler, which in retrospect is really weird. But he was the tall guy, and so I was the tall guy, so that's who I was. Also, a slightly older, I was the world's biggest Trent Meacham fan when he played at Illinois. No one on earth was a bigger, like Trent Meacham's mom probably wasn't as big of a Trent Meacham fan.
Hey,
as
prime
I was.
Trent Meacham was a problem.
He was a bucket. He absolutely was. Him and Dimitri McCamey, those like mid-Weber era Illinois players. My batting stance in baseball, I just copied Derek Lee's. It was just the exact same. The front foot way wide open, kind of rock a little bit. I just completely stole it from him. Football, it was always Donald Driver. And when I was a kid, Brett Favre too, but I wouldn't admit that nowadays.
Yeah, you and me both. Like, I was a big Favre guy when I was a kid. You know,
like everyone was, because it was like the stuff he did was Mahomes like. Well, decades before Mahomes, except he threw more interceptions, like a lot more interceptions.
Yeah,
it wasn't quite as accurate. But like everyone wanted, all my friends were Bears fans almost. And it was like, oh yeah, do you see what Brett Favre did on like the Monday after a game? Yeah, it was awesome. We lost because he also threw 4 picks, but it was awesome.
That is not how young Broncos fans feel about Mahomes today. I can tell you that with certainty.
I believe that.
I have friends with kids.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That definitely makes sense.
I was thinking last night about the first Nuggets game I went to, and naturally would think about that. So let me ask you regarding your hometown Chicago Cubs, a favorite team of yours that you have seen win a championship. What was the first game you went to, or at least remember going to?
My first game period, or my first Cubs game?
First Cubs game. The one that planted the seed.
So here's an interesting fact for you. I didn't go to games as a kid. Like I went to a few, but the first baseball game I ever went to, I was in 5th grade. It was the year the White Sox won the World Series. Actually, I remember it vividly because it was my parents' anniversary and only one of my parents went. And the lady in front of us yelled at my dad in the stands. It was my dad, my uncle, and I. She's like, "Why are you here on your anniversary without your wife?" And he's like, "I took her to dinner yesterday. It's fine." This woman in front of us did not think it was fine. But like I remember it vividly. Sweaty Freddie Garcia pitched for the White Sox. Joe Creedy hit a home run. I think Paul Konerko did too. Anyway, like I don't even remember the first Cubs game I went to. I want to say it was maybe a year later. Well, no, it might have even been a couple years later. I think it was the Lou Piniella years. I went with my best friend, Evan, my best man at my wedding. I think we saw them play against the Giants, but I, honest to God, don't remember it. The thing that, to me, I remember that really made me, like, committed forever to watching the Chicago Cubs was Game 6 of the 2003 NLCS. In other words, the Steve Bartman game. Like, that is the first Cubs memory that beyond any others I remember. Like, I have very vague memories of watching games that Chip Carey was calling when I was a kid, or very early Pat Hughes, Ron Santo memories on the radio. But, like, the first thing I actually remember of being like, dang, I'm stuck with this forever, was the Bartman game, which until 2016, I tell you what, pretty crappy, not going to lie.
So the first game, Nuggets game, my dad ever took me to, it was the end of the 1990-91 season. So I was 4 years old, 4.5. His boss at the job he's working at, I think, gave him the tickets. It was the last home game of the regular season for the Nuggets. They were playing the Spurs, David Robinson and the Spurs. I am looking at the box score of the game right now. I did not remember that Nuggets won the game, which they did, 125-122. This was year one of the Paul Westhead era. So the Nuggets got up 112 field goals in this game. That's what we were dealing with. Michael Adams had 30. David Robinson had 27 and 13 in the losing effort. The Nuggets won the game to improve to 20-61 on the season. They would lose their finale and finish 20-62. A truly wretched basketball team. But I remember because they are still, to this day, aside from press access, the best seats I have ever had for a sporting event. We were 2 rows behind the Spurs bench at McNichols Sports Arena. So I'm 4.5 years old. Like I have a David Robinson basketball card, and there's the real David Robinson, who is as chiseled from granite as any human being who has ever lived is. And that was my first taste of live pro sports, I think, was right there.
That's awesome.
Behind the bench. And I had totally forgotten the Nuggets won that game. But that's the game and the time I can blame for all of this.
I've only been to one Bulls game in my life. They played the Cavs. It was the last year of LeBron's original Cavs run. I went to overtime. It was awesome. But yeah, no, I didn't go to games much as a kid. I've gone much more as like a teen and as an adult than I ever went to as a kid. But that White Sox game, I remember for sure. I brought my glove. I kept score. It was like everything, every single cliche about a baseball game. It was all in one. We do have to get to a quick timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. The Royals lost last night. What's new? We'll break it down next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Chesko with your money now.
580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you. We've got Royals baseball coming up tonight. Maybe they'll win a game. Jordan Lyles is on the mound.
So, no, they won't.
They've lost 7 in a row after last night. They fell to the Cincinnati Reds 5-4. The Royals showed some fight, tied the game late, bottom of the 9th, got a run to tie it.
Salvi coming up big.
Love to see it. On the same day, we had the news that he said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm using my no-trade clause no matter what. Awesome. Great day for Salvi. And then the Reds scored in the top of the 10th on a play that was initially ruled an out and then was overturned, and then they lost. They did not score in the bottom of the 10th inning.
And then the A's won.
The A's beat the Rays. Let me tell you a little something about someone who not only bet the Rays minus 1.5 runs,
Oh, no.
but then laddered it and bet the Rays minus 2.5 runs.
Oh, dear.
Occasionally, I make bad bets, folks. That was a bad bet. I thought the A's had their fun. The Rays are the best team in baseball. This is going to be a rude awakening. Well, I was freaking wrong. And now the Royals lost a game in their slim lead over the Oakland A's for the worst record in all of baseball. The Royals for the season are now 18-48. The Oakland Athletics are 18-50. They are 1 game better, only because they are 2 games better in the loss column. They have the same number of wins. The A's and Royals have won baseball games the same number of times. The A's have won 6 games in a row, including one now over the best team in baseball. Do you know how far back we have to go with the Royals for them to have won 6 games?
6. I think you were saying 6 games in a row. I said, boy, you got to go way back. 6 games?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. You got to go to mid-May, don't you?
You have to go to, almost exactly the middle of May. May 16th. They beat the Padres 2 days in a row, took 1 from Detroit, back-to-back wins over Washington and St. Louis, and then they beat Colorado in their finale on June 4th.
Oh, jeez.
You have to go back to May 16th for them to have won 6 games. Do you know how many losses they have in that same time frame, Dan?
A lot.
17.
6 and 17. They start 6. No, they start 4-16.
This sucks.
Yeah, man.
This is brutal. And at least yesterday was competitive, but they're about to have the worst record in baseball. And there's no reason, no good reason or explanation for why this team, even with the struggles they have had, there is no good reason why this team should be about to fall behind the Oakland A's. Roster-wise, future projection, talent-wise, this Royals team is, or at least should be, better than the A's. Sure as hell ain't playing like it. I know the Marlins, Orioles, and Reds are better than the Royals are, but they're not that much better. No, they shouldn't be.
The Royals were built to be at least as good as those teams were supposed to be. And instead, they're barely better than the team intentionally constructed to be the worst in baseball.
Major League come to life. That is what the Oakland A's are. A-Watch was really a harbinger of something very sad.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
Now,
we're going to have to be on A-Watch out of necessity. That's the new, we're going to, scoreboard watch the A's to make sure they don't pass the Royals.
Here's the other A-Watch. They had an 11-game losing streak within the last month. Royals have lost 7 in a row. They've got another couple against...
Well, they got Jordan Lyles tonight, so that's 8.
Yeah, they've got Jordan Lyles tonight. 2 more against the Reds, including tonight's game with, again, Jordan Lyles on the bump. Then they've got 3 against the Angels. Those will be at home. Can they get a win before they have an 11-game or worse losing streak?
Gosh, I hope so. It's hard to lose 11 games in a row.
It's extremely hard to lose 11 in a row, but I don't know where the light is at the end of this tunnel right now. I hate to ruin a great hour, a very positive, fun, happy hour of 580 Sports Talk with this, but good Lord, give us something, anything. They should be due for a 9-1 win at some point, just to feel feel something,
A
just to
laugh.
feel alive.
Yeah, it'd be nice for them to get a laugher, but barring that, I'd take a rain out. Where's Crash Davis? Get him a rain out.
Yeah, we need that Thursday off day this week for sure. We'll get to a break. We'll come back. Chris Jones skipping minicamp is going to lead off the 4 o'clock hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzynski, Dan Lucero with you until 6 o'clock today. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We appreciate it as we do every single day. Good vibes today. Dan's Nuggets, world champions of the NBA.
That's right.
We should have, I'm going to propose, I'm usually against this because I think international soccer works because it's its own system. American sports work, they're their own system. We don't need to cross compare and bring things from there over here. Like the NBA's dumb mid-season tournament idea. That's dumb. Leave that in Europe. I think we should have a club World Cup of basketball. Nuggets versus Metropolitans 92 from France, who I think they won the EuroLeague.
They were down 2-0 in their final series.
Uh-oh. Well, never mind. Apparently I was wrong.
I don't know. I haven't been following that one all that closely.
Versus Maccabi Tel Aviv versus, whoever won the Asian World Championship.
They did some version of this once, back in the 80s.
Really?
I
did not know that.
I think it was sponsored by McDonald's. The
Hell yes.
Because the Celtics went overseas to play some teams, and it gave rise to there's this great clip of the iconic Celtics radio play-by-play announcer Johnny Most, who sounded like he ate an entire bag of gravel and smoked every cigarette on earth in preparation for the broadcasts. He had a voice like this. If you've heard any old NBA clips, you're familiar with the voice of Johnny Most. Well, Johnny Most was getting up there in years at the time that the Celtics did this in the late 80s. And I've never forgotten this because they ran this clip on I want to say it was Dazzling Dunks and Basketball Bloopers was the name of the VHS that, and this is not me joking here. I am dead serious. I rented that videotape from Blockbuster every weekend. If it was, we're going to family, we're going to rent movies, I would rent Dazzling Dunks and Basketball Bloopers with Marv Albert and Frank Layden. And they would always show this clip of Johnny Most trying to broadcast this game with the Celtics playing against a team from Central Europe, Yugoslavia or something. And Johnny Most had no chance on the names. So he's just going to the little guard now and back to the lefty. Just not even trying with the names.
I had no idea that this was a thing. They played at a FIBA event in 1988. They took on Real Madrid. Yeah, in a FIBA event. Okay, well, there you go. It's like Grand State in Kansas.
Yeah.
1976, Highland Park, your only ever Grand State champions.
One time, yeah.
I think that basketball should bring that back. Even play by FIBA rules. Who cares? That's fine. I would like to see the Nuggets play against Maccabi Tel Aviv or the Guangdong Tigers or whoever else. I would like to see that. I want to see Jokic give those dudes buckets. That would be very funny to me. He probably knows a decent amount of the European guys.
Yeah. There's a great Jokic story that he was prepared, instead of coming over to the United States, he was prepared to sign a contract with FC Barcelona and continue his basketball career in Spain. And the game where they went to watch him, he had, as Jokic puts it, I had 4 points, 3 rebounds, and I didn't play defense. And so they decided they weren't going to sign him after all. And then Jokic decided that he missed his girlfriend very much. His girlfriend, now his wife, was playing college volleyball in Oklahoma at a JUCO. I want to say it was Northeast Oklahoma. It was a JUCO in Oklahoma. And so she ended up transferring to Metro State, which is in Denver, when Jokic came over to the Nuggets, and the rest is history.
How about that? Yeah, what a lovely family. You mentioned it earlier. That is a very likable team. Jokic is a very likable guy. I find Murray to be extremely likable.
Jamal Murray makes great faces.
Yeah, he does.
He is one of the most memeable athletes, I think, because he just makes great reaction faces. Aaron Gordon walked home from the arena in just his game shorts and shoes last night, like the Pied Piper of the Mile High City.
It's pretty funny.
Which was super cool. And then Jokic, people joke about the quotes that he gave afterwards. I'd have to go home. I don't want to go to the parade and all this. Jake played a bunch of them on Mic'd Up earlier today. But you could see, like, you really want to see Jokic happy. Like, just watch him interact with his family. Watch him interact with his brothers, with his wife, with his little girl. Like,
yeah, he picked up his daughter and just left the MVP trophy. He's like, yeah, whatever.
yeah, like this, like priorities firmly in order for the best player in basketball.
His wife and daughter, his brothers, his horses, and then basketball.
Yeah,
In that
a little hoops on the side. You know, when I am done, when I must take a break from the things I am truly passionate about, I will go be the best basketball player in the world and a champion and a 2-time MVP.
It's incredible. Coming up here in this hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll talk about some other champions, the Kansas City Chiefs and minicamp. Chris Jones did not show up today. Why that might not be all that big of a deal, especially when you compare and contrast it to what is going on with another AFC title contender. That's coming up here in just a second. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You? And we'll talk to Michael Swain from Fog.net for today's Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Speaking of the NBA Finals, it wasn't this year. It was the bubble finals. But you know the image of Jimmy Butler hunched over the wall, the barrier?
The not the scorer's table, but like an advertising barrier.
Yeah, just exhausted. If you've been on Twitter in the last 3 years, I'm sure you have seen it. That's what Michael has been the last couple of days with a bunch of KU recruiting news. He even tweeted that image last night.
The exhausted Popeyes worker.
Yes. Oh, man. Too many biscuits. Michael's been all over the KU football recruiting news. There's some KU basketball news this weekend as well, adding a walk-on who was formerly a Division I scholarship player who also is friends with one of KU's freshmen this year. We're going to get to all that with Michael coming up later on this hour. Of course, your texts are still welcome. The text line number is 785-272-9429, and our YouTube channel's open to you as well. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. We are live streaming on video throughout the show today. And, of course, Royals baseball coming up tonight. 6:30 pregame coverage begins for Royals and Reds Game 2 on the Royals Radio Network. The Kansas City Chiefs were missing their second best player, third best player, either their second or third best player, Chris Jones, at minicamp today. It's either him or Kelsey. One's second, one's third.
Yeah, and I think whoever you personally want to argue is their second best player, I will listen to your argument and respect it a great deal.
Yeah, it's one guy who's definitely going to the Hall of Fame and the other guy who last year overtook a guy who is for certain going to the Hall of Fame as the best interior lineman in the sport.
Picking one of them as better than the other feels disrespectful to the other. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which way you argue it. You feel like, man, that kind of disrespectful to the other guy.
By the way, real quick, speaking of Kelsey, much better first pitch last night.
Yes, right down the pipe. The arrows had to have helped.
Yeah, both Casey Wolf and Slugger, if you haven't seen the video, held signs with arrows pointing to Bob Witt, who caught the ceremonial first pitch from Travis Kelce. I thought Kelsey was going to spike it because he put his whole body into that throw and really piked when he threw it. It was a good pitch, though.
Yes.
Good frame by Witt. I thought that helped.
Got his redemption, which was great to see.
Place went nuts for the Chiefs yesterday.
Yes. Although I do have to say this, in a season where the Royals have done very little correctly on the field, did they have to schedule Chiefs nights on a night when a team wearing red and literally with red in their team name was the opponent?
Probably not great.
I mean, I understand like logistically why they did it. Like, I'm not saying the Royals, they should have done this differently, but
everyone was in town.
Yeah. Like the optics of it ended up not being super awesome. Also, there was that loser in the Diamond Club seats in the Sam Hubbard jersey, I think it was.
Wow. Great own, dude.
Yeah.
Sick.
Bengals fans love to talk about being 3-1 against the Chiefs.
Yeah. I'm with you. Did you hear what Burrow said today about Mahomes?
Yeah, the Burrow said.
Obviously, there's a lot of news today.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff happening in the sports world today.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was asked during his media availability today who the best quarterback in the world is, and he said, "Well, until someone proves otherwise, it's Pat." Like, duh. And he looked at the reporter like, "Duh. What do you think I'm going to say? Like, I'm not giving you the quote you're looking for. I am not going to play your game." But he's right, and I think Burrow is in the elite group of quarterbacks, but there's Mahomes and then there's everybody else right now. Anyway, the actual story we wanted to get to is Chris Jones is not at Chiefs minicamp right now. He wants a new contract extension. He's going into the final year of his deal. Honestly, this is pretty much standard operating procedure for a lot of guys, especially guys who are truly in their prime, like Chris Jones is. Like, guys who are, I saw Kevin Zeitler, who's an offensive lineman for the Ravens. Really good player. Been for a long time. He's looking for a new deal going into the final year of his contract, but he showed up. He's like, yeah, I want to get paid and, well, whatever. Chris Jones has many years left of being a productive NFL player. He's holding out. I don't blame him. Go get your money. We always say that. I have no problem with it. The tweet from Adam Schefter about this to inform the masses that Chris Jones was not at minicamp today read like this after he edited a typo. Chiefs 4-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Chris Jones, whom Kansas City is open to signing to a contract extension this summer, is not at the team's mandatory minicamp today. First, I don't believe he needed to use whom in that sentence. Secondly, that is very deliberate that he includes the clause about Kansas City is open to signing him to a contract extension this summer. You don't say that in that line of work. You don't say that unless you are directly told by your source, we want to get this deal done, or at least we want you to tell the people we want to get this deal done.
It's all of the insiders, the language that they use and the details that they have and the details that they don't have. Sometimes what they don't say can be just as revealing, but it's all extremely intentional.
It's kind of an art form.
Yeah, especially with the guys who've been doing it a long time. Your Wojs and your Schefters.
Yeah. So that's what it is for Chris Jones. That was the news today for Chris Jones. This works both ways, I think, for the Chiefs. One, it's clear this is kind of a clarion call. Hey, we want to get this deal done. We've worked out extensions with Chris Jones before. He's important to us. We're working on it. Okay, great. Assuages some of the fears about, what's he not doing there? We're going to lose Chris Jones. We're going to trade him, cut him, whatever. Or we're not going to work on an extension. This is sort of a, hey, we're working on it. By the same token, if something doesn't get done, this also serves as the classic NFL franchise move. No, the player's the bad guy. You saw the report. We're working on this. We wanted to sign it.
Yeah, we want to do this. Don't blame us if he isn't at minicamp tomorrow.
So as much as I do believe this is going to get done and he will get an extension, this is the Chiefs were very intentional. Whoever inside One Arrowhead Drive is Adam Schefter's source for the Chiefs. They were very intentional about the messaging they put out there. But again, I don't have any reason to believe that this isn't going to get done and that the Chiefs aren't in good faith trying to get something done with Chris Jones. We know Jones wants to be in Kansas City. We know the players want him there. The coaches want him there. I have no reason to believe the front office doesn't also want him there.
Nate Taylor with some good reporting on this too, the beat writer for the Chiefs for The Athletic. And shout out to him for keeping his job when The Athletic decided that they don't want to pay a bunch of beat writers anymore. It was a very sad day.
Incredibly
for that
sad day.
Publication yesterday. Anyhow, this is from the little news bite today about Chris Jones not being at minicamp. Throughout this offseason, Jones, according to a league source, has said he wants an extension that will make him at least the second highest paid player in his position. Like, we know this. This has been established. This has been out there. The Chiefs, according to a team source, are waiting to see if the Jets and defensive tackle Quinnen Williams will agree to a contract extension before the start of training camp. If such occurs, and Williams becomes the second highest paid player at the position behind Aaron Donald, the Chiefs would then be able to negotiate a proper extension with Jones to see if both parties can agree to such a deal ahead of the upcoming season. So that's interesting on two fronts.
Yeah.
Number one, the Chiefs kind of have their eye on, okay, what's happening somewhere else, because they don't want to do something with Chris Jones that Jones is going to regret if Quinnen Williams makes more than he does, because Quinnen Williams should not be making more than Chris Jones, because Quinnen Williams, while a great player, is not Chris Jones.
Right.
So they wait and see what Quinnen Williams gets, and then you do the deal with Chris Jones. The other part of this is, if that's really what the Chiefs are doing, keeping their powder dry, like we want to see this, we want to see what happens. And that's a team source comfortable enough making that public. Then where do you usually see the animosity with players not coming to mandatory minicamp? It's the fines. Like, you accrue fines if you don't show up to minicamp. Teams are willing to forgive those
Mhm.
in certain instances. And players like eventually will like show up even if they're disgruntled to mandatory minicamp a lot of the time, because like they'll hold out for a day or two to make a point, but they're not trying to lose too much money, and they'll show up.
And there's an element of good faith there too.
Yes,
I think.
that's what I'm getting around to. Is that this all feels like very good faith, even though it's playing out a little bit in public. It's not playing out with a lot of animosity publicly, and as we'll elucidate, it stands in contrast a little bit to how things are playing out with another star in another AFC contender city who would like a long-term contract extension.
Yeah, so to that point, Stephon Diggs did not show up at Bills' mandatory minicamp today. And when asked about that, Bills head coach Sean McDermott said that he is, quote, very concerned that Diggs is not at minicamp today. So at first blush, I saw that this morning, and I thought either one, they were fully expecting him to, and he has gone full diva, which if you're a Minnesota fan, you're probably saying, yeah, I've been there before. First time? Like, incredible player. I think Stephon Diggs is as talented as almost any receiver in the league. Definitely, you want to talk about athletes with egos, though? I think he is a fairly healthy one.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, typical.
It's all you need to say.
Or he's very concerned because they don't know where he is, which legitimately would be like, okay, yeah, that's pretty scary. Well, it turns out further reporting early this afternoon indicated not only was Stephon Diggs in town, he was in the building yesterday doing his midsummer medical testing. He met with the front office. He met with Sean McDermott. Like, he's around. He's there. He just didn't show up to minicamp. Then Josh Allen is asked about this. Understandably so. They're pretty tight, despite their little spat on the sideline last year. They're tight. Josh, what's going on? Are you concerned about this? And Allen pretty much threw his full support behind Diggs and then alluded to some sort of behind-the-scenes front office problem with communication, like internal problem they're having. And then Diggs' agent also came out and made some sort of cryptic statement about we're working through some things. This is not good. I'm not necessarily saying Diggs is going to ask for a trade, and no one's going to take him on that contract anyway because it's preposterous. It's humongous. And he's still a huge key piece for Buffalo. But that is not a spot you want to be in. Let me tell you this as a fan of a team who for the past 3+ years, their prevailing narrative has been the front office doesn't want to include the franchise players in personnel decisions, okay? And is weirdly secretive around their personnel. Not a good spot to be in. You do not want your own players, your franchise icon, Josh Allen, going to the media and saying, yeah, there's an internal issue and I support Stephon in this. Not a good spot to be in. And you want to go full circle and tie this back to what we talked about at the top of the show and championship teams and championship culture and DNA and all of that. The Chiefs have shown for years now, the entire Brett Veach era, they're going to handle things the right way. They're going to have to make tough business decisions, but the guys they want to keep, they are going to work with them. They're going to work in good faith with them. They are going to try to get a deal done. They've done it with Chris Jones in the past. Teams that are not on that same level end up in situations like the Bills are in right now with Stephon Diggs. I would also be concerned if I was a Bills fan right now, and apparently my coach and my quarterback / receiver and front office are all on different pages.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? It doesn't seem like the right hand knows what the left is doing right now, and that's a level of dysfunction that nobody aspires to, especially if you're going into the season feeling like you're a contending team, you're trying to make a run at the most functional franchise in the entire sport, the reigning Super Bowl champions. Like that's the thing. It's such stark contrast. The Chiefs have never not seemed like they have their ducks in a row. Everything that the Chiefs do feels intentional. It feels orderly. It feels like there's no animosity, like there's no confusion, like the lines of communication are wide open.
Unless you're Steven Nelson. That is the one time there's ever been animosity. Even Tyrann Mathieu kind of got over it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Except Steven Nelson.
Yeah, Steven Nelson's the one guy.
But your point is totally well met. Like when have we ever seen this kind of discontent during this era of Chiefs football? We haven't. It just hasn't been there.
Like Chris Jones was probably bummed that Frank Clark signed with the Broncos, but it's a non-story a day later. Like, all right, man, on to the next. We'll keep it moving.
And that, again, is trust between players and front office going in both directions. That, hey, we wanted this to get done. I wanted this to get done, but I trust that you are doing the right thing for us, the right thing for me. To revisit the point real quickly about Quinnen Williams, and maybe I'm missing something here, but wouldn't you want to get your deal done with Chris Jones first? Because if Jones wants to be a top 2 defensive tackle money, which I get, he deserves, and the Chiefs want to, and I get that from their perspective too, save as much money as possible, save as much cap and cash as possible, wouldn't you want to get your deal done before Quinnen Williams' deal and put the impetus on the, like, you don't care what the Jets are going to do with their money. Who cares? And do whatever you want. Wouldn't you rather like try to save $1 million or $2 million if possible?
I mean, maybe, but at the same time, if you're talking about $1 million or $2 million, you don't want to risk offending Chris Jones by pinching pennies to
That's true.
that degree. Like, see how the market plays out. And because Quinnen Williams isn't going to get more than Aaron Donald. Nobody's going to get more than Aaron Donald.
What if he did, though? That's the fun part of this game. What if he does? Now, he literally can't. I don't know if you heard this. They have not reworked Aaron Rodgers' contract. So he's still on his full cap hit for the next 2 years. Best of luck with that and signing other players that aren't just former Packers. Anyway, your point is understood.
Yeah, that they're going to go ahead and wait, and they're not going to nickel and dime Chris Jones on this because all reality, this is the last lick Chris Jones hits for as an NFL player. This is the last big contract that he is likely to sign. And Jones knows that. His agent knows that. And the Chiefs know that. Brett Veach knows that. So they're not going to nickel and dime him. They're not going to play with his money. They're going to see how the market develops, and they're going to give him what he's asked for, which is, I want to be the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league. They will make him that happily. But they want to see if there's a Quinnen Williams deal. And if there isn't, I mean, because there's a very real chance, as you laid out, that doesn't happen, then the Chiefs can move on and both sides can come to an agreement that suits them both within those circumstances.
I suppose I was sort of ignoring the fact that it could have just been mutually agreed upon. Just let's wait to see what the Jets do. Jones' camp says fine. Chiefs say fine. It gets worked out. I think this is going to get done. I would assume by the start of training camp, a deal is done for Chris Jones. And I think he'll show up at some point during the offseason program. The fines will get waived. There's a good relationship there. You don't tweet, I love Brett Veach 4 years ago and then suddenly change, even though all the vibes have been good ever since.
Right.
That just doesn't happen. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain will also join us coming up this hour on 580 Sports Talk.
Get your weekly Wednesday pick.
wrong with you on this Tuesday afternoon edition of 580 Sports Talk is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our winner yesterday, named She Want to Kill Mr. Tree Timber, a gentleman who worked for a landscaping company, owned a landscaping company, was working in someone's yard, and the neighbor woman was upset that sawdust and branches were getting in her yard. So she leaned out her window with a shotgun and pointed it at the gentleman with the landscaping company.
As one does.
Just slightly unhinged. He did not press charges, and honestly, I'm upset that he didn't. I wish that he had. She deserved to be tried for that. My story today, Dan, is going to take us to Sumter County, Florida, where a man is in the hospital after officials say he jumped from the second floor of a home that he had crashed into and tried to burglarize. There is a lot going on in this story. We head to the Sandalwood condominiums in Sumter County. Callers called the sheriff's office at 3:54 Sunday morning. So 3:54 a.m. You know the rules. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Facts.
So callers called 911 to say that the driver of a car was trying to break into multiple apartments. They eventually identified the perpetrator as 44-year-old Corey Payton. One witness said, quote, he rammed it twice. He came once, and then he hit it again. It sounded like someone was trying to break in the house, so I ran into my son's room. Ketchum, the witness, lives next door. He said he was grateful his son wasn't home when the crash happened. He showed a local TV station the impact from the inside of his child's bedroom. Quote, there is structural damage inside of my house. You could see, like, it started to push the windowsill and everything.
Oh, no.
The sheriff's SWAT team responded to the scene, and that's where they found Corey Payton. The witness says, quote, I came out to meet the cops, and the guy just walked right past me. He was full of blood, and he ran around the building, took off, and then there was a chase from there.
Aren't we all full of blood when you think about it?
Technically. Deputies say that Payton then barricaded himself inside another home on the second floor of this apartment complex. He's accused of breaking in and trying to burglarize it. Now, according to the sheriff's office, Payton began threatening to shoot at deputies, prompting the surrounding condominiums to be evacuated. Members of the sheriff's office crisis negotiations team were able to talk with Payton through a window of that second floor apartment, and the negotiators worked for several hours to get Payton to surrender peacefully. Was he willing to do that, though? Nope. He jumped out the window to try to make a run for it, to get down and talk in person. Who's to say? Fire crews from the villages were then on the scene and had to initiate life-saving measures before Payton was eventually taken to an area hospital.
He jumped 2 stories.
The witness said, quote, grateful, I guess, that it wasn't worse. Nobody physically got hurt except for him. So, it just could have been worse. The sheriff's office shared images of the scene on its social media page. Payton has an extensive criminal history with a total of 139 prior felony charges and 30 felony convictions. Why is he out able to do this? That's what I would like to know. By the way, he had an ankle monitor on, and he cut it off inside the house he was trying to rob.
Of course he did.
So there is a lot going on with Mr. Corey Payton. He is facing charges of burglary of an occupied dwelling, burglary to a dwelling, and several counts of my favorite, criminal mischief. Love criminal mischief. Great charge.
We could have really called this segment Criminal Mischief.
Oh, good.
Like, just in general. Like,
what
is wrong with you? Like,
no, that's true.
Alternate name, Criminal Mischief. Anyway, yeah, we got some mischief here for mine. We go to Elko County, Nevada, and meet Timothy Baggett of Carbondale, Illinois, who needed to catch a flight but didn't have a means to get to the airport, so he stole a vehicle to get there, which would not be all that notable if the vehicle in question weren't a backhoe. Baggett was arrested May 21st for charges related to the possession of a stolen vehicle and later released. He was arrested again the next day for charges related to the possession of an additional stolen vehicle.
Oh.
Williamson County Sheriff's deputies were called to the Veterans Airport of Southern Illinois in Marion to look into a suspicious incident. A backhoe was parked in the airport parking lot, which was determined to be suspicious in nature. According to the Williamson County Sheriff, soon after the deputies arrived, the owner of the backhoe arrived on scene and said the equipment belonged to his company and it had been parked on the job site, the intersection of Illinois Route 13 and Spillway Road. After further investigation, the sheriff said Baggett stole the backhoe and drove it 10 miles to catch his flight at the airport. He arrived and parked the backhoe in the airport parking lot, walked from the backhoe carrying a guitar case, and entered the airport lobby when he got on a flight to Portland, Oregon. You hear of people either getting rides from other people, borrowing cars, stealing cars, but a backhoe being stolen from a job site, driven 10 miles to an airport for an individual to catch a flight all the way to the West Coast carrying a guitar, that is unique, said Sheriff Jeff Diedrich. He was arrested 3 days later in Nevada.
I mean, how fast can a backhoe go?
I had no idea. 20 miles an hour, maybe?
Maybe. We got to get out of here and get to Michael. Who's your vote for today?
I got to go with the backhoe guy.
It goes to max speed of 20 miles an hour. Just get a bike, dude.
Walk.
Yeah, for real. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Stole a backhoe to catch a flight.
I'm going with that one. You can't steal a backhoe, dude. Does that take down our current winner? She want to kill Mr. Tree Timber herself.
Much as I like the title, I think the idea of I got to get to the airport. Let me steal this backhoe.
I will take anything with wheels.
Me and my guitar and this stolen backhoe. I bet he wrote a killer song about it.
Dude, I'm pretty sure that's a Dwight Yoakam B-side. That is our new winner in What Is Wrong With You Today, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply. Let's take a break. Michael Swain's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm about
one day at a time.
That's what made a difference today in the game.
I told him that was vodka.
Dollar signs. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
What a scene in Lawrence, Kansas tonight.
Have a freaking weekend. Kansas football, Lance Leipold and company, a major recruiting weekend for the Jayhawks, and we're going to break it all down with our good pal Michael Swain from Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go follow him on Twitter at mswain247, and of course, all of his great work covering KU football, KU basketball, and everything in between over at Fog.net. Michael, have you gotten a chance to take a break, to take a breath, to get a little fresh air over the last couple of days? Because you have been working as hard as anybody in the business, my friend.
Not yet. I'm targeting Thursday as my day. We've got KU football camp tomorrow and KU basketball camp scrimmage tomorrow, so I'm looking at Thursday. hopefully getting some sunshine being outside.
We will get to a few of these new commitments for KU specific players in just a moment, but I wanted to ask big picture. Coming off of a weekend that was just full of really highly regarded recruits, one of the biggest official visit weekends that KU has had in recent memory, let alone in the Lance Leipold era. How big of a deal, how important was it for Kansas to come away with a lot of positivity out of this weekend? And obviously there have been big names that have committed, but just in general, how much did KU need to have a successful weekend here?
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially when you take into account, right, this is kind of the first big official visit weekend of the summer. And I think momentum is really a real thing in recruiting. And if this had been a weekend where Kansas had left with, maybe one commitment, I think other guys coming in on their visits this week and the following week might say to themselves, whoa, what's going on there? Why are all these guys going in and visiting and leaving without committing? And I think that a big weekend like this creates momentum where now you've got a strong group of, you're pushing double digits, right? I think it's about 9 right now of guys committed that then they can go out and recruit guys that are their own age. And so I think that's all pretty big, and it kind of does have a big snowball effect overall. So I think it's massive. I think just the overall way things went in terms of, I think, treating the high profile guys right, but also making sure everyone left Lawrence feeling like they were taken care of, that they got all their questions answered. I think those are just huge things for even guys who don't commit to Kansas right now, just maintaining a really good relationship, because in the age of the transfer portal, you really can't have bad relationships with high school kids because you don't know if they're going to transfer in 2, 3, 4 years.
The biggest name that committed to KU this weekend, and it was a little bit of a surprise, maybe a large surprise, really deep in recruiting circles, Austin Alexander, 4-star recruit, top 500 kid in the country from the south suburbs of Chicago, Chicago Heights. My mom lived in Chicago Heights briefly. Fun fact for you. Anyway, Austin Alexander, 4-star kid. We know KU needs to add some defensive talent in the pipeline for the future, but to get a player like this, who's got this kind of talent, this kind of pedigree, what does he project to be at the college level, and just how big of a win for Kansas is it to get a player like Alexander?
Well, it's huge. I think you want to look at it from a recruiting perspective. Brendan, when was the last time you heard of a recruit having visits set up to Purdue, Indiana, and his home state school of Illinois, and canceling all of those visits to commit to Kansas? That's what we're dealing with here with Austin Alexander. He's a guy that was very highly coveted. Illinois wanted him, Purdue, Indiana, other schools wanted him, and Jordan Peterson really developed a great relationship with him and his family. And I think the fact that, for me, why this was so surprising is usually kids commit after maybe their second visit to Lawrence, right? Usually they come in for an unofficial and then they're back for an official visit. Not often is it that these kids come in and commit on their first time seeing campus. I think that speaks to the relationship side of things. And so in terms of the player Kansas is getting, I think it's really similar to Kobe Bryant. You look at Austin's frame, he's about 6'1", 165 pounds. And he's very similar to Kobe, right, who came in probably about 170 pounds and 6 foot. So he's going to have to put on weight in college, but he's got the ball hawk ability. He played wide receiver, a really good fluid athlete overall. So he's another one of these ball hawk corners that I think you could see, with the flash plays, be able to be an all Big 12 guy down the road.
Michael Swain of Fog.net is joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. We do it every week at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Michael's work at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Follow him on Twitter at mswain247. The commitment announced today for Kansas football, running back Harry Stewart has chosen KU over some pretty significant offers. Had a Baylor offer, there was a Michigan offer, a couple of SEC offers as well. What kind of running back are the Jayhawks getting in Stewart, and how big a deal is it that they were able to get a skill position player away from some pretty high-profile offers?
Yeah, I think it's big. And it's so funny. I mentioned, right, Kobe Bryant and Austin Alexander, how very similar those guys are. If fans have time or if they're VIP subscribers, right, go over to the website and look at the commitment profile I wrote. I included his film, and he looks like Devin Neal. It's uncanny. And even Harry talked about with me when we were talking about his commitment the other day. He had Devin Neal as his host, and Devin Neal said, Harry looks like Devin Neal. And then Harry told Devin Neal, yeah, I feel like I look like you. Like, it's just crazy how much he looks like him, on tape, right? He's physical. You see some of those photos from the official visit. Like, I wish I looked like that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, he looks jacked. And so he's a guy that's a physical, well-built running back, has pretty good top-end speed. He's run the 100-meter times under 11 seconds, which tends to be the kind of, if you're looking at track times, right, anything under 11 seconds in the 100 is considered good. He ran about a 10.8 once, and so he's got speed, he's got the size, and overall he's played as a little bit of a slot running back at times, where he's moved out of the backfield to the slot. Just overall, an overall weapon that, again, you look at the visits, you look at the teams in his Final Five, right? These are other Power 5 schools that want these kids, and Kansas is building a good relationship with them before the visit, so that when they do see campus, they're like, yep, I'm ready, I'm good to go. So I think it's just another one that you look at and say, a guy that can project to be a starter at Kansas. And I think definitely, like, if he can continue to get faster, I think he's a guy that's got, pro upside.
Michael Swain is our guest. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks, football, basketball, recruiting, all of it over at fog.net, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Absolutely worth the price of admission to be a VIP. You can also follow Michael on Twitter at mswain247. It's really felt different for me, Michael, over these last couple of days, watching some of these new commits to KU tweeting at other guys. And the one that stands out is Michael Boganowski from Junction City. We've had his high school games a couple of times on our airwaves in the last couple of years. I know you and I have talked about him. I think he's going to be an awesome college football player. And that's one that Oklahoma, I think Florida State is interested. Tons of national programs are after him. And you've got members of this 24 KU recruiting class tweeting out commitment pictures. And Isaiah Marshall, the quarterback for that class, tweeting, come join us. Come be a part of this. I think Harrison Utley, who also committed this week, a kid from Oklahoma, offensive lineman, tweeted the same thing. Does it just feel different to you? And I know you said, recruiting momentum is real. Does it just feel like there's a different kind of momentum in the program, and especially with recruiting right now?
Yeah, because I think so much of it's collective. I think a lot of times in recruiting, it can be individual, where individuals commit to a school because it fits them, or because it's their only offer, or because a coach wants them to go there, the high school coach, for example. These guys have other offers. They can go elsewhere. And I think they collectively, spending time around each other on the visit, kind of get the feel that together they can do something. That's something that, Harry Stewart talked to me about, where he mentioned that talking to these recruits and talking to the potential teammates at Kansas, that he got the feeling that those guys want it as much as he do. They want to win as much as he do. And that's the thing, right? These guys are all in together now. And I think that sense of camaraderie, why it's important to have all these guys on campus together, is that it creates that. And now it's kind of all about trying to add to it, right? And I think Michael Boganowski is a great example of that, where, I think KU's probably behind K-State and Oklahoma at the moment, but they're going to do everything. And these recruits want him to come be their teammate because they know how good of a football player he is, and they know what having him on the team would do. So they're going to recruit him. The coaches are going to recruit him. And they're going to do everything they can. And if at the end of the day you commit somewhere else, I think you just got to hold your hands up and say, all right, we tried. You just didn't want to go to Kansas. And that's perfectly fine. It's going to happen in recruiting. But I think overall there's just a sense of camaraderie among the group that I just don't know if I've felt maybe this heavily in a Kansas recruiting class in a long time.
Boganowski and also Dekias Brinkley, who by the way, I had not heard that name on the recruiting site. I've been focusing so much on basketball, now getting much more into the football. I saw your write-up the other day over at fog.net about Dekias Brinkley, and you mentioned that he's a South Carolina legacy. And I thought, there's no way this is Jasper Brinkley's kid. When I was growing up and my sister went to South Carolina, that was the era of South Carolina football I was a diehard fan of. And I was like, this was like 2009, Michael. How does this kid have almost college-aged kid already? Anyway, it made me feel old as dirt. But with those two guys, who were probably the two most high-profile prospects who visited this weekend, do you think KU made some better inroads with the two of them?
I think so. I think you look at Brinkley, and he's just a blue-chip guy. Like, his tape's incredible, right? He's dominating at a really high level in the state of Texas. Like, if you want to check off the things a high school recruit need to have, right? Dak Brinkley has it. And so KU is shooting its shot here. Again, very similar to Michael Boganowski, doing everything they can. I think they feel like they've put in a lot of work with them. I think getting the first visit here is important because you really set the bar, and Brinkley now knows that Kansas is an option for him and that they really, really want him. And I think the thing that he said coming out of the visit is that, hey, I really like the family atmosphere around KU, and he's close with his parents. And I think that's something that you look ahead, if you continue to recruit him and make him feel at home at Kansas, if other schools slow play him, for example, like Texas is one that could have him on campus for a visit. Well, if they keep slow playing him, does that really feel like home? And if it does, all right, cool, that's great. But I think Kansas is trying to make itself feel like a place that, hey, you're going to come here, you'll be welcomed, you're going to be a talented guy on our football team and have the chance to be a star. Is that going to be the case in their school? Maybe not, especially if he stays in the state of Texas. So it's one of these where, again, Kansas is shooting its shot. I think they really did put the right foot forward on the visit. And it seems like one of those where they're definitely going to be under consideration going forward. It's just a question of what does the recruit want. And I think it might be a little too early for him in his own head in terms of wanting to commit.
His dad was awesome in college. Jasper Brinkley was a monster at South Carolina. Michael, last question for you before we let you go. Wanted to flip over to the hardwood for one moment. KU basketball got a commit this weekend from Cal State Northridge transfer Chris Carter, who played on the grassroots circuit with Marcus Adams, who's going to be a freshman this year. But Carter is walking on at KU. That's a kind of unique situation where a guy is on scholarship at a small D1 and then transfers as a walk-on to a bigger program. How did that all shake out? And do you know why he would take a walk-on spot? Because I'm sure someone would have offered him a scholarship.
Yeah, I think you're going to see this a lot more now. Guys that are faced with the question of, all right, do you want to go play? And I don't know if this is necessarily the case for Carter, but, do you want to go play D2 ball, or do you want to go be a walk-on at a high major school? And I think a lot of people these days are going to take the high major school, right? Take the experience, the education, and you'll play in practice and get to work on it. So this is one of those, right, relationship through Marcus Adams, the AAU program. And so, we'll see when he gets to campus. If he gets to campus, it's so hard with walk-ons, right? Not really binding. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, this is one of those where the relationship is from kind of the grassroots coach from Marcus Adams. And so KU needs more bodies, and I think they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do if they want another scholarship player. I think that's a possibility, but the pool is very small right now, and so I think this is going to take some time, I think, to figure out the right person to be the final scholarship. But yeah, as for him, walk on, so he'll help out in practice, but I don't know if this guy that Kansas fans are going to see taking the floor in a game.
For the absolute best coverage of all things Kansas Jayhawks, head to fog.net. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Be a VIP. I will tell you right now, it is absolutely worth it. That's where you'll find all the great work of Michael Swain covering KU. You can also follow him on Twitter at mswain247. And he joins us for Jayhawk Weekly every Tuesday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, awesome stuff as always. We appreciate the time. Get some rest at some point, and we'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you then.
That is Michael Swain from fog.net and 24/7 Sports. What a weekend for KU. You think they got it tight? Your running back for that class looks like Devin Neal. Your best corner looks like Kobe Bryant. Your quarterback for that class looks like Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, it would seem to make a lot of sense, right? Let's
Right.
find guys who we know work in our system, and let's find some clones.
Yeah, let's just keep running it back year after year. Sounds pretty good to me. That does it for the 4 o'clock hour, though, here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got 1 hour left on the show today. We'll get to our headlines. We'll preview some Royals baseball against the Reds, get to your texts, your YouTube comments, and much more. That is all coming up in the final hour of this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. now, final hour of this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. We are here with you live on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Around the world online at 580WIBW.com and streaming video-wise on YouTube on our channel Sports on 580 WIBW. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today. We've got plenty to get to in this final hour of the program. A lot going on in our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll also look ahead to Royals versus Reds tonight. That game is coming up with first pitch at 7:10, pregame at 6:30 on the Royals radio network here on 580 WIBW. And we'll get to some 580 Sports Talk overtime as well. If you missed our conversation with Michael Swain from last hour, appreciate Michael for jumping on with us. But we'll re-rack that, and we'll hear that during 580 Sports Talk overtime today at the top of the 6 o'clock hour. Don't forget, the comment section's open on YouTube if you want to be a part of the show and you're watching the live video stream, or you can text us your thoughts on anything we're talking about today. Our text line number is 785-272-9429. Have you been able to... I almost got through asking this question. I don't want it to sound mean because you haven't done anything wrong. Have you been able to focus at all today?
It's been hard.
Okay. Yeah, I figured.
But not as hard as it was yesterday and any of the other days where the Nuggets were in the NBA Finals. It is the one thing about when you're a fan of a team and they're in a championship series or they have a championship opportunity that anybody I think can relate to, this is probably not unique to me, is that it feels like you're entering a sort of mind prison where it just occupies so much of your daily life. It is so much of what you think about, almost to the point of distraction. And then when it's done, there's a relief that it's over.
Yes.
There's I'm glad for many reasons, but I'm glad I don't have to watch a game 6 of the NBA Finals. Would I feel that way if the Nuggets had been down 3-1 and lost the finals? No, I'd be devastated. But I am glad that I do not have to watch a game 6 or a game 7 of this series. It is done, and that now I can enjoy the reminiscing on it, and will be enjoying that for probably as long as I live.
I completely get that, and I sympathize 100% with not wanting it to go any longer than it has to. I had gotten to a point with Packers playoff games in the last few years. I was not excited. The year we lost to the 49ers in the divisional round, I was not excited for that game at all. I did not want it to happen. I did not want to play it. I was like, let's just get through this. Playing in the playoffs and in a championship event is more so like a chore and a nervous activity, an activity that inspires anxiety than it is a fun thing for me.
No,
which is probably
true.
Deranged. That probably means my brain is in a really bad spot, but it's also just the reality of the situation. Without further ado, let's get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. A lot going on in the world of sports today. My first headline is fairly late breaking news right at the top of the hour, approximately. Jeff Passan, MLB insider extraordinaire for ESPN, dropped that we are one step closer to the A's getting their stadium in Las Vegas. Passan reporting on Twitter that the Nevada State Senate has passed the $380 million bill to help fund the proposed stadium for the A's move to Las Vegas. Later today, by the by, A's fans are doing a reverse boycott. Have you read about this?
Yes.
So normally you would boycott an event by not going. You would boycott a product by not buying it, not using it. A's fans are doing a reverse boycott where they're actually going to show up to a game. They are planning to fill up the Oakland Coliseum, the Ring Central Coliseum. Is that what it is now?
I have no idea what they call it these days.
O.co Coliseum, whatever it is. They're planning to fill it up with fans, essentially to say, we still love and care about our team. It's the owner we don't support. Sell the team. We'll see if that works. According to Passan, this is step 1 of 3 passages of this bill that need to take place for it to actually go into effect and to actually fund a new stadium. The Nevada Assembly also has to vote on this bill. If that passes, it will then go to the governor, who can either sign or veto it. You civics nerds out there, you know how this works. If it is signed into law, the A's will then have to seek final approval again from Major League Baseball to move to Las Vegas. So 2 more steps in the state of Nevada, another step with MLB, then they can eventually move. MLB is going to approve this, obviously. They're not going to stand in the way of, oh, you're not getting a stadium in one city, and then if you move somewhere else, you'll get more money. We'll all get more money, and you will get a stadium. Oh, man, tough choice. No, MLB is obviously going to approve that.
Right.
This leads me to believe that it is going to get done. I thought it wasn't because they had to go to special session to make this happen. I thought this wasn't going to end up working out for the A's, but it sounds like the move is on at this point, unless the Nevada Assembly totally bucks the trend here, which sucks. It sucks for the fans in Oakland. Like, if I was an A's fan and I lived in the Bay, I would find it hard to support the team again. Like, I've always wondered that because we've had teams move. We had the Rams move, we've had the Chargers move, we've had the Raiders move, all those in the NFL. We've had so much movement. In my lifetime, the Expos have moved to Washington, and Montreal still wants the team back, and I understand why. I've wondered what my reaction would be. Like, if I don't think the Packers are ever going to move because they're community owned, but like if the Bulls moved, if cheapo Jerry Reinsdorf said, no, I'm not doing this anymore, I am moving to Spokane, we will be the Spokane Bulls. Like, I don't think, I don't know. Like, I've spent my whole life being a Bulls fan. How do I suddenly not be one? But at the same time, like, the owner is spitting in your face. This is such an egregious example of the owner telling you to go do you-know-what to yourself.
Pound sand.
Like, I don't know how you could continue to be a fan of that team.
No, I hurt for Oakland sports fans who will have lost all 3 of their major sports franchises. And, I mean, we be honest about a place Oakland's size. It was kind of a miracle they ever had 3 in the first place. Like, let's be real honest. Like, if you tore down major sports and you started handing out franchises to different cities, like, Oakland's going to be way down your list of cities. And that's like not a knock on Oakland or anything about it in particular. It's just not real big. It's not a big market. You're not drawing from a as large a population as you are in some other places.
And you can just say, well, San Francisco's right over there.
Right, exactly. Like, if you're going to put teams in a place, you're going to put them in San Francisco. And that's the calculation that the Warriors made. They they moved across the Bay. But San Francisco is not Oakland. And you add that to losing the Raiders and now losing the A's. Like, that is a city, Oakland, with such a great sports heritage. And it's not just on the pro sports level. Like, some of the guys who were raised in Oakland, you've got some of the all-time great athletes and some of the all-time great personalities in sports history. Bill Russell is Oakland. Ricky Henderson is Oakland. Marshawn Lynch is Oakland. To just, just a few generations there. But, like, there is so much rich sports history in Oakland, and there is so much support and so much passion. We saw it at the Black Hole. We saw it how loud the arena would get when the Warriors were making their playoff runs. And you saw it in that ballpark in Oakland when that team had a pulse. They're going to make the point tonight in their reverse boycott. Fan support is not the problem. Give them a product worth coming out to see. Build your own damn stadium, and they would come to see it. They would come and they would fill it up. But no, this is another example of greed trumping passion, and a reminder of who's really important in sports. And it's not you and me.
I think that the obvious answer here is, if you can't afford to build your own stadium, then you should not own a team. If you want to own a baseball team or a football team or any sports franchise, you should understand that comes with, you build the stadium, you house them, they are yours. It's like having a child. Like, they are your responsibility. You have to feed them and give them a place to live and keep them safe. Like, that's what you do. So the easy thing to say, and I think the obvious thing to say, is, John Fisher, if you cannot build your own stadium or fix a stadium or whatever, sell the team to someone who will. And I think that is the, morally, although even that's a stretch to make any of this about moral. that's the obvious answer. But by the same token, like, if Nevada's going to do it, then what is the impetus? Until every city agrees we're not going to do this, then owners are going to keep moving teams around, or they're going to keep asking or demanding for or begging for handouts. And if they keep getting them, it's not really going to stop. I think you have examples like Jacksonville, for example. We talked about that headline last week, I think it was. By the way, Daytona officially said, we're willing to work with you on putting Jags games at Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that update. The Jags Stadium is actually it's not owned by the Jaguars. Technically, they're a tenant. They obviously have a lot of power there, but it's either the city of Jacksonville or Duval County or, the Jacksonville Sports Commission or whatever. That's who owns that stadium. So public money going into that sucks for the taxpayers, but at least you can understand that. If you're going to have taxpayers pay for a stadium that you get nothing out of, how can you approve that? I just don't know how you can say, oh, yeah, this is the right thing to do. I'm not a politician, and I never will be, but that seems like something, like if you're in Nevada, how can you be like, oh, yeah, this is good. This is what the people of Henderson County need. You sure about that? Just similar to Oakland, though. Like, the A's want to play hardball? Fine, we can too. And I think the A's did the right thing. It just sucks that a terrible owner is going to take away a team that they've had since 1968.
And I'm glad you made that point in that fashion. We have a texter from 785 who points out that obviously before the A's were the Oakland A's, they were the Kansas City A's.
Yeah.
And this texter's been to more Kansas City A's games than Royals games.
How about that?
Shout out to that. Oakland took them is the texter's point. Oakland took them. Pity level 0. Oakland did not take the A's. Charlie Finley took the A's. Charlie Finley took the A's from Kansas City. Let's put the blame where it really belongs. Cities do not take teams away. Owners take teams away.
I sympathize with that. I do. I understand, and I agree with you, too, that it's, the city of Oakland did not come to Kansas City and take the A's away. Charlie Finley did. But I mean, it hurts. It sucks. You lose your team. There's obviously some bitterness there. I shared this. We had a headline about the A's a while back, and I shared the story from a Cubs broadcast when they played the A's this year, and Rick Sutcliffe was in the booth. Rick Sutcliffe from Independence, I believe. Great major leaguer for a long time. Won a Cy Young in 1984. And he shared that growing up in Kansas City, people still ask him, like, why didn't you become a Royals fan? He said, I was an A's fan. I grew up with the A's. That was my team. And when they left, I felt hurt. Like, I didn't want to root for someone else. I was an A's fan as a kid. So I totally sympathize with never feeling settled with that. I think basketball fans in Seattle will always feel some sort of way about Oklahoma City, even though the people of Oklahoma City, they didn't go steal the Sonics.
No, Clay Bennett stole the Sonics.
Yeah, Clay Bennett is
or the Sonics,
is the one who stole the Sonics and turned them into the Thunder.
But put the names on it. There's a bad guy. It's not, like, put a name on it. John Fisher is the bad guy here.
But I get it. I understand the bad feelings. I do. And I'm sure that's our texter is not the only person who feels that way, of a certain generation who says, no, they were ours first. They took them from us.
Well, I bet they took them from Philadelphia.
I bet you there are some Angelinos out there who feel like getting the Rams back was like divine providence, because
justice.
Yeah, like, hey, St. Louis stole them from us. They had been here since the 30s, and then they bolted for St. Louis. We deserve to have them come back. It's like all sports business things, when you, not like sports media business, but like the big billion-dollar business of sports. In the end, who is served by it the least? Who is most negatively impacted by these landmark decisions? Generally speaking, it is the fans, which seems backwards, because like the reason sports are as big as they are is because people care about them like us and want to support them and want to have that local connection. And it sucks. And I feel bad for the fans in Oakland who did not ask for this and did not want this. It sucks for them.
Texture from the 316 says, no, we shouldn't have to pay for a team's new stadium, but what about those of us who don't have kids in school anymore, yet we still have to pay school taxes? I don't want to sound glib when I answer that, but like, tax dollars are a reality, right? Like, we all get taxed for stuff. That's the reality of being an American citizen. Like, what's more integral to the function of your community, the function of your society? Well-educated kids or a baseball team? Like, if that's the choice, I'm happy. Like, I don't have kids go to school, but if that's where my tax dollars go, instead of building a 50,000 seat, $1 billion stadium for a baseball team that the person who owns that baseball team can pay for his damn self, then yeah, that's my preference as to where my tax dollars go.
Yeah. And I'll be completely blunt with you. I rent. Okay. I'm not paying property taxes.
Right.
And I know I am here to talk about the sports part of this, and I don't want, the political stuff.
Right. And like,
I'm not qualified to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. No, and like the broader point, like it is not right for billionaires to ask the general public, hey, give us this money so we can build this stadium, or to hold a community, to hold a city over a barrel over it. Like the threat of we're going to move if you don't build us a stadium, because that's what the last decade has been in Oakland.
Yeah.
We will move if you don't build us a stadium. And the people of Oakland said, well, go screw. You're not, you can afford to build where you want to build.
I think it essentially comes down to me, and to build on the point from our texter, and I appreciate you guys jumping into the conversation on this. To me, that is more of a reflection of, hey, dude, we got our own problems. Like, I do have to pay taxes on this stuff. I got to feed my family. I got to do this, that, the other thing. Like, I know you have the money to pay for a stadium, so you can pay for that stadium. All this to say, it's a bad situation. Like, it just sucks for everyone involved, unless you're like a diehard fan of baseball and have lived in Las Vegas your whole life, in which case I guess you end up winning here. But that's about it. The crazy thing is John Fisher's going to sell the team, a year after they move? 2 years, maybe?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is a pump and dump from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Very obvious.
It's so gross, and it absolutely sucks. First headline for me, I suppose this is my first headline. We've got the latest developments coming down the pike here as far as Diamond Sports and their broadcast rights agreements with Major League Baseball teams. Per the Sports Business Journal, and as aggregated by awfulannouncing.com, there are 5 Major League Baseball teams that are owed rights payments in the coming weeks from Diamond Sports. They are the Texas Rangers, Arizona Diamondbacks, Cleveland Guardians, Minnesota Twins, and the Cincinnati Reds. Following a ruling in bankruptcy court earlier this month that Diamond could not pay less than the value of previously agreed contracts. Like, no, you can't, not doing a pay-as-you-go here, but you got to pay what you owe. There is a chance that all 5 of those teams could not receive their payments and then meet the same fate as the San Diego Padres, where they would be dropped by Diamond Sports and the Bally Sports RSNs. The Rangers are first up. Their payment is due Thursday. The Diamondbacks, Guardians, and Twins are all owed payments July 1st. The Reds have a payment set for July 15th. The Reds are unique in this situation. They actually own an unspecified equity stake in Bally Sports Ohio.
Interesting.
So there's a little bit different situation there. The Twins seem to be in the most danger because their TV deal expires at the end of this 2023 season.
Oh.
And it does not appear that a new TV deal for them is in the cards. So bad situation potentially. Now, we know what Major League Baseball's short-term fix is, or at least what it has been with the Padres. They have essentially inherited the broadcast rights. They have found local distribution in those teams' respective cities and metro areas, TV markets, and they have offered a streaming option for that team's games within the market that did not previously exist due to blackout restrictions. But there are some different scenarios here that are coming into play, and it could very well be in the next month or so that 5 more teams are going through what the Padres had to go through with the loss of their media rights deals.
I do think it is interesting to note that in the short term, there's a plan in place, and that's good. Major League Baseball has that ready to go, and they can get, they'll get those teams on local channels if they need to, and MLB will produce the games and all that. That's all well and good. I am curious what this is going to look like long term. I don't think it makes sense for baseball to completely, and I'm talking, regional coverage. I don't think it makes sense for it to go permanently streaming. I just don't think, especially when you consider baseball's fan base skews older. The average baseball fan is in an older demographic. And generally speaking, I don't want to generalize anyone here, but put anyone in a pigeonhole them. But it generally skews older. Those same older demographics generally stream content online less often than, say, younger demographics, myself, yourself, etc. You want those games to be on TV. You don't want to alienate those fans. Like, I think of my wife's great-grandpa who lives in Manhattan, loves the Royals, watches every Royals game on TV. I'm sure it has been hard enough to find them over time. Like, does our home have this service? Can we find this channel, etc., yada, yada. Like, you don't want to take any fan away from being able to watch the game as easily as possible. That does not make sense to me for Major League Baseball. So I think there has to be some sort of TV deal at some point. But what do you do? Like, local NBC affiliates probably don't have $1 billion laying around. And I know
the value of the TV deals is going to be substantially less, and that is going to result in those teams probably having to tighten their belts a little bit. And that's not ideal. Because it doesn't require them tightening their belts. They've still got the money. They've just got substantially less of their revenue stream, and they're going to have to find a way to replace that. What will probably happen in the short term is those teams will spend a lot less money on players.
Carlos Correa just got a 6-year, $200 million contract with the Twins.
Mm-hmm.
You're not paying anyone that kind of money if you're the Twins, if you don't have a good enough TV deal. Honest to God, you're probably not paying Carlos Correa that money because you're probably trying to move him if that's your TV deal. Like, oh, wow, all of a sudden it took 2 years and we suck now. Okay, well, Carlos is out. We'll add a bunch of, suddenly you are the A's.
Yeah.
And that it is unfortunate, and it's a different situation than the A's. That's truly terrible ownership. This is our TV partner was a flop, was like a borderline Ponzi scheme. But that's again a bad situation. And you're right. This comes back to player salaries, and the players are going to get paid less. And then you're going to be in an impasse with the union, and then it's going to get gross and ugly, and we're going to end up pretty much in the same spot we were in just over a year ago. Yep. Not where we want to be. Remember that? Remember when we were locked out from the first 2 weeks of the season?
I sure do.
That sucked. That was not fun at all. It feels like forever ago, though, at this point.
It does.
The Royals are not part of that group who you just mentioned. I wonder how long it would take before the Royals, the Rays, and there's a few other teams, too, would end up possibly being in a dumping Bally situation.
Keep watching the skies.
Can't take that long. This is bad. This is really, really bad for the Diamond Sports Group. Next headline for me on our 580 Sports Talk headlines today. This came from Pete Thamel of ESPN. It was actually reported on last night, but it is his latest news and notes about major college sports realignment. Not a whole lot going on at this point. The latest update on Colorado is essentially they would like to stay in the Pac-12. They are also completely cognizant of their situation, and they are willing to move at this point. And they're going to find out what the eventual Pac-12 media deal numbers look like, and then they will make a decision from there. But they have had in-person meetings with Brett Yormark and the brass at the Big 12. They are ready to make a deal happen. He also adds, Pete Thamel does, this note. The Pac-12 won't be blindsided if Colorado does end up leaving. It has been acknowledged around the league that the Buffaloes would be replaced by San Diego State, a quick solution that delivers a desirable market. But it's also not as simple as plug and play, since the symbolism of Colorado leaving would likely mean more than the actual defection, leading to more departures and uncertainty. I actually think I agree with that. I would like for Colorado to be back in the Big 12. I think just in terms of tradition, it makes a lot of sense. In terms of similar programs, it makes a lot of sense. In terms of fun for the Big 12, it makes a lot of sense. But seeing someone leave, similar to Colorado leaving the Big 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, God. This feels like the first snowball in an avalanche that is about to come tumbling down the mountain. So that is significant, I think. There's also a note in here from Pete Thamel that the Big 12 has been very specific with its messaging. Brett Yormark said, hey, we didn't talk to Memphis, but he didn't deny that they had talked to UConn and took visits to UConn and are interested in that. But he notes that, hey, if Colorado jumps, the Big 12 doesn't have to just say, oh, no, we need to add UConn immediately to get an even number. They might say, well, this might destabilize the whole thing. What if we waited for someone in the ACC to leave? What if we waited for another Pac-12 school to leave? We are in a position of power if that ends up happening. So this update is essentially nothing is going on right now, but as soon as George Klivakov calls that meeting with the Pac-12 presidents, something is going to happen. Either the leagues are going to firm up and stay put for the next decade, or Colorado will be in the Big 12. So stay tuned. That's essentially the update.
Yeah. Pretty fascinating. A lot of really good tidbits in that Pete Thamel article. It's for ESPN Plus subscribers only, but I understand many of you probably are, so worth checking out at ESPN.com. Last headline for me. Let's get into what might be our penultimate
Playoffs?
roundup
Playoffs?
of this playoff spring and summer. Our look at the daily happenings in the NBA and the NHL playoffs. Last night, of course, the Denver Nuggets won the NBA championship for the first time in their 56 years of existence. If you missed me talking about at the top of the 3 o'clock hour, at the top of the 4 o'clock hour, I will sum it up for you in brief. I am very, very happy. And it's kind of funny. Jason Kosminski's the radio guy for the Denver Nuggets, and I got to hear the radio call of the final seconds. And he did the whole Nuggets fans can rest or die in peace. And I used to always think that was kind of overwrought.
Yeah.
But nah, with this, I kind of feel like, like I got this one. Like I'm good. Like if I can quote Jay-Z or paraphrase him, the Nuggets go in 82, and I look at you like this gravy.
Yeah.
Like they got the one. They got the one. They get to hang the banner. And that's a dream come true, certainly for me and Nuggets fans everywhere. Meanwhile, tonight, a team that has been around for 6 years can win its first championship. The Vegas Golden Knights, 1 win away from the Stanley Cup. They play the Florida Panthers tonight in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final with a 3-1 series lead. The cool thing is, since it hasn't been decided right now, Denver, Colorado is home to the reigning Stanley Cup champion and the reigning NBA champion.
That's pretty cool. They have at least 24 hours of that. That's pretty cool.
It's like the Tiger Slam, like a little bit of a wraparound. But no, but right now, Mile High City, City of Champions.
I do believe Vegas gets it done tonight. Back at home, Florida, I think Florida mentally quit.
Yeah, I think Florida's probably cooked, especially if Matthew Tkachuk either doesn't play or can't be impactful, which he really kind of hasn't been in these Stanley Cup finals. He was their best player through their Eastern Conference run. He's dealing with a shoulder injury. If he can't make anything happen or even play at all, it's really hard to see a path back for the Panthers.
Knights win?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, too.
Tough luck, Miami. But you know who I'm not sorry for? Ryan Cortez of Meadowlark Media. Dude's a chode. He deserves this.
That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. We've got more 580 Sports Talk, including your text, your YouTube comments, all coming up next segment right here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got a couple comments in the YouTube feed, our YouTube channel, by the way, Sports on 580 WIBW, if you want to watch the video version of the show. Our pal Vance says that he remembers Municipal Stadium in Kansas City.
Just a few blocks from that 18th and Vine area. And up on the hill a little bit. Lovingly rendered as Mulebach Field in this year's edition of MLB The Show as part of their initiative with the Negro League Baseball Museum and the Storyline Mode. I play a lot of games there when I'm playing online or playing as a computer. I play at Mulebach Field a lot.
Speaking of that general topic, did you see where the Field of Dreams game is going to be played next year?
I did not, no.
So it is going to be played. I got to look up the exact name of the field. They're going to play it in Alabama, where Satchel in Birmingham.
Rickwood Field. Yeah. Rickwood Field.
And we have the teams for it as well. I think the Giants are participating in it. But yeah, so it's a little funny to call it the Field of Dreams game because the whole point was they were playing it at the Field of Dreams in Iowa. That was just like a contract. They just had a 2-year deal to play it there, and they didn't renew it. And like, that was enough for us. I think they're going to do a bunch of construction in the area, and they're redoing part of it and all the grounds. Frank Thomas is a part owner. Very weird. Anyway, so they're not doing it actually at the Field of Dreams or in Iowa at all. So you are correct, Dan. Rickwood Field, Birmingham, Alabama. That is where Willie Mays played a lot of games in the Negro Leagues with the Birmingham Black Barons, among other great Negro Leagues players as well. That's pretty cool. It's going to be Giants-Cardinals in that game.
Huh.
No, it was the Reds and the Cubs who played last year.
Yes.
I don't believe they're doing it. Are they doing it at all this year?
I don't know.
I don't know that they are. But no, it'll be back next year, and they'll play it at Rickwood Field. That's pretty cool. I was going to say, as we look that up.
No, they're not playing one this year because they are doing construction around the site.
All right, that's what I thought. I was going to say when I read that text or the YouTube comment from Vance about remembering Municipal Stadium, just to revisit the talk about teams moving, it's just so hard for me to picture that. Like, I grew up, I was very fortunate to grow up in a major city that also really cares about its sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, major city is an empty term, but a gigantic city that also really cares about sports. Like, the Bears are such a part of the fabric of the Chicago culture and identity that even moving to a suburb is so, like, it has blown the minds of so many people who live there. The Bulls, and I mean basketball in general, but the Bulls are such an important part of the city's culture that they're never leaving, even with their idiot owner and his idiot kids. Like, they're never leaving. The Cubs and, well, the White Sox almost did. They were very close to leaving in the early 90s.
Yeah, almost moved to Tampa.
Before the Rays. They have always had iffy fandom, but like, the Cubs are never leaving.
Right.
They're going to be there until the end of time.
They're going to play in Wrigley Field till it crumbles to dust.
And before the Ricketts owned it, it damn nearly did. And like, the Blackhawks aren't going anywhere. And I'm a Packers fan. The Packers are quite literally never leaving. That they will never leave Green Bay, Wisconsin. Like, I can't even imagine, for those of you who lived through the A's leaving Kansas City.
Yeah, and if you're a Kansas City sports fan, you had teams move in 3 of the 4 major professional sports leagues. You had the Kansas City Kings decamp for Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Kansas City Scouts move to Denver, who then move
to New Jersey,
out of Denver to New Jersey. And yeah, you had the Kansas City A's move after like barely even a decade. I think it wasn't very long.
Yeah, how long were the
54 to 66 or 67?
We're about to find out. Yeah, so I guess Kansas City at one point in time really went through what Oakland is going through right now.
Yeah.
55 to 67, so just over a decade. In fact, that was the shortest stint by a lot of anywhere the A's have been. They were in Philadelphia
50 odd years.
Yeah. And it's been 50 odd years in Oakland too.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how long they would have to play at the Coliseum before they can move to Vegas, or if they'll just, if this passes.
Yeah,
soon,
I think they just want out. They just want to leave. They'll play at the 10,000 seat AAA park, is what I have heard, that they would do that.
I mean, you have to, right? I was not like I was alive, but I wasn't really conscious for the Oilers moving to Tennessee. But I've seen clips from that last Oilers season in Houston. It looked like COVID games. There's just no one there. Because why would you go and support that, especially if they're not a winner? So if I was the A's, I think you have to get out, and you have to get out ASAP. Because otherwise, you're already playing in front of allegedly 3,500 fans a night. It might be damn near zero.
And I mean, things are different now. Like you look at the revenue streams available to sports owners now that you can pretty much survive anywhere. The only reason teams move anymore is it's stadium disputes. Like if you really look at it, if you look at the American sports franchises that have moved in the last 20 years, stadium. It's stadium disputes. The only thing I can think of a team leaving because it was genuine like lack of interest was the Atlanta Thrashers moving to Winnipeg.
Yeah. Atlanta hockey, never again. Don't ever try that again.
But it's all stadium or arena disputes. Oh, you won't build me an arena, I'll take my team somewhere else. And then that's how we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that's how we have the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's how we have the Washington Nationals and not the Montreal Expos anymore. Like, that's what it is.
Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. The revenue streams now, though, are so significant from cable. Like, you can make money anywhere. Like, when the Kansas City Kings moved, they moved because nobody went to Kemper Arena to watch the Kansas City Kings because they stunk. Like, when the Kansas City Scouts moved, it was because nobody went to watch the Scouts. Like, and that was your revenue stream, was attendance. And if people didn't come, you had to go pick up the tent stakes and go play somewhere people would see you.
It reminds me of the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about gambling and how nowadays you can't walk up to a Major League Baseball. You can't walk up to Mike Trout and say, hey, you want to take a dive for 10 G's?
Right.
Nah, dude, I make that in one at bat. Why would I do that?
I make that in the on deck circle, bro.
Yeah, like there's no reason for me to do that. It's the same principle here. Like it is, I think it's hard. And I mean, I'm still fairly young. I certainly can't imagine what it was like 50 years ago. But it's hard to imagine how much the money in sports has blown up in the last, really the last like 30 years, if you really want to think about it. But, 40, 50, 60 years, it went from, it really is just like an entertainment thing to this is life. This is culture at this point, is like being a sports fan. And like if you live in North Florida, your culture for a lot of people is yelling Duval and wearing jorts and like cheering on the Gators. Like that's what the culture is. It's kind of crazy it's gotten to that point, and that it's as fragile as, well, you won't build me a new building, so I'll leave.
Yeah.
That's kind of unbelievable in a way. Let's get to another timeout. The Royals will be in action. Speaking of teams that want new stadiums, the Royals will be in action tonight at their current one, Kauffman Stadium, taking on the Reds. Will this be the end of the Jordan Lyles drought? We'll break it down next on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday, June 13th, 5:47, just about to be 5:48. Coming up at the top of the 6 o'clock hour, we've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime. We will listen back to our chat with Michael Swain from Fog.net. It was today's Jayhawk Weekly. That's coming up in just a little bit. Before we get to Royals baseball tonight, pregame begins at 6:30. First pitch is set for 7:10 as the Royals take on the Cincinnati Reds. Heartbreaker yesterday to lose in 10 innings, 5-4. Tonight, it'll be Jordan Lyles on the mound for the Kansas City Royals. Jordan Lyles, you may have heard, is 0-10 this season. He has an ERA of nearly 7. The Royals, in his 13 starts, have not won a single time. He's only got 3 no decisions. They are all also losses for the Royals. Can we get a 14th consecutive loss for a Jordan Lyles start for the Royals, or will they finally snap it tonight?
I mean, you almost, I don't want to say you have to root for it, but perversely, isn't it kind of fascinating to watch and see how long this might go on, how long this losing streak might persist?
I mean, who doesn't like to witness history? Like, I was there when I watched Jordan Lyles start a game and lose it for the 14th time in a row. You are going to witness history at Kauffman Stadium tonight, possibly. Or, alternately, you'll see the day the streak was broken.
It's not a great pitching matchup. It's Brandon Williamson. Is it Brandon Williamson?
I think you are correct about that, but I'm going to double check.
Pretty sure it's Brandon. Yeah, Brandon Williamson. Left-handed pitcher, made his major league debut this season. He's nothing like spectacular.
He's a body.
Yeah, he's big. He's 6'6".
Big body.
Big guy. Left-handed pitcher. I know sometimes those guys give certain Royals trouble, though. Salvi and Eddie O usually swing the bats pretty good against left-handed pitchers. I don't know. Like, I don't, on a human level, wish this losing streak to continue for Jordan Lyles because I imagine that no one is more keenly aware of the fact. Like, that's why he was signed. He got 2 years and $17 million from the Royals to keep his team competitive, to pitch innings and give his team competitive outings. And to have utterly failed in the way that Jordan Lyles has to be just on a strictly human level so demoralizing. I can't even imagine. And Lyles has been in baseball. He's been up high, not for long, but he's been up high. He's been on playoff teams. He's been down bad. Like, I got to imagine this is as down bad as a guy like that, a long-term major league veteran, has ever been. And so there is a part of me, the human part of me, that would like to see the streak end tonight and for Lyles to, at the very least, pitch in a win. He had to get the win, but I'd like to see him pitch in a win. But for the sake of, like, content, Lyles Watch is something that could sustain us for a couple of more starts. Who knows?
Yeah, it gives us a reason to talk about the Kansas City Royals. By the way, I felt a little guilty yesterday. The hit streak for Ellie De La Cruz ended. Spent all day talking about how exciting this guy is. He's going to punish Royals pitching, all that. He did steal a base. I think it's the first player ever to have 4 RBIs and 4 stolen bases in his first 7 games, which is really cherry-picked and really specific, but tells you how good he's been, how productive he's been. But I felt bad. He didn't even get a hit. Felt like I was hyping him up all day, and then he didn't even get a hit.
Right? Deliver for us tonight, Ellie.
He is huge, though. He is freakishly big.
He's so big.
That's a weird trend. The giant infielder between him and O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah. They've just kept getting bigger and bigger. Like, Cal Ripken Jr. used to be such an outlier as a shortstop, and now all shortstops are built like him.
Which giant was it? Brandon
Crawford?
Yeah, Crawford was big.
Yeah, Troy Tulowitzki was huge.
But yeah, I still think of shortstops and second basemen as little guys.
Yeah, you picture a shortstop in your head as like Ozzie Smith or Ray Ordonez.
I played a decent amount of second base in Little League, and I was huge for second base, but they didn't have anywhere else to put me because I wasn't quite awful enough to put in right field all the time. And they had better players who played first and third.
Well, those days are over. Now shortstop is a premium offensive position as much as it's a defensive position.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is. What is the deepest spot in baseball right now?
Whew, man, we have enough time to really dig into this.
It wasn't that long ago that I feel like shortstop and catcher were almost completely bereft of talent. Like, there were no good shortstops just a handful of years ago.
And a lot of good ones. A lot of good ones having bad years right now. Like Frankie Lindor's having a bad year. Trey Turner's having a bad year. Carlos Correa's not having a real good year. Like, a lot of good shortstops
too.
A lot of good shortstops having bad years.
Been a great year for Major League Baseball, but you don't love to hear that if you're at one of those premium positions. No doubt about that. We have one more timeout we've got to get to. We'll pay the bills. We'll come back, get you ready for some Royals baseball with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping things up on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word. I'll go first to you as much time to talk about the Nuggets as possible. Great weekend for KU recruiting. It has only continued to get better with the Harry Stewart commitment today. They've got a Kobe Bryant clone, a Devin Neal clone, and a Jalen Daniels clone. Sounds pretty good for the future for KU football.
Final word for me today. There's that great online internet meme of the two, like the strong handshake meme, I think it's called, where you've got the two arms clasping together and in the middle
from some Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah, something like that. In the middle, it's what they're shaking hands about. And I feel like today I, as a Nuggets fan and Chiefs fan, can share in the strong handshake meme with the thing we are shaking hands over being world champions with the best player in the world. And it is already a great feeling to root for the champions, but to do it knowing that you have the best player in the world, you have the outlier, you have the one who's broken the game, and you have him in his prime, and he might get better, and he might keep winning. What a feeling. Chiefs fans, I know you know it well. I know it now too. As a Denver Nuggets fan, it is a great day, and we will see if my wife tolerates me putting the replay of the game on TV tonight.
Enjoy maxing out your credit cards, by the way, buying merch.
Yes.
License plate holder, mug, 84 t-shirts.
License plate. I got the plate.
Oh, good.
Yeah, going right on the front of the car.
You got to get all of it. Absolutely
all of
do. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We've got some 580 Sports Talk overtime coming up next right here on the Sports Voice of Kansas.